Tick-tock, time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. It's your friendly neighborhood philosopher here, D. Wood. And with me now, someone who might not be so friendly sometimes. Mary Harp, a.k.a. Too Many Marys. How you doing?
I am doing very well, thank you.
We've got David Tortoise Wood. Very rude, very dieselophobic. So, guys, we are here to explore an interesting question. Not sure how to put it because I don't want to use any offensive language. I don't want to upset anyone. How do I put this? Some people say of Muhammad's mother.
She was a hooah.
That's Ralph Cifaretto for everyone who's seen the clip. But yeah, turns out we you know Muslims don't know a lot about Muhammad's mom. They just think of her as some super awesome, noble lady and so on. And, well, Mary here is not too convinced by the standard Islamic narrative on this issue. So we're gonna take a look. But what are you thinking, Mary? What are you
Yep.
thinking?
Indeed, indeed. Whenever you look into the Islamic sources, you discover things that immediately don't add up. And it kind of makes your suspicions rise a little bit, but you're like, oh, maybe they were just bad at recording certain things. But then as you continue to dig deeper into the sources, the evidence becomes overwhelming that part of what made Muhammad who he was his insecurity in his own belonging to the Quraysh and belonging to his own family and his desperate desire to win approval. But it goes farther than this. You know, some people think, oh, well, this is just a low grade insult. Well, no, it's not. It actually goes to the fundamentals of Islam. There are 5 different reasons that if Muhammad's mother did not have Muhammad by the father who is credited to him, Islam is false. So there are 5 different reasons that this disproves Islam.
Hang on,
So
hang on,
this
hang on,
was,
hang on, hang on, hang on,
no,
hang on, hang on. And so I'm bringing this up because a lot of people would have a similar reaction to the one I had when you suggested a while back that Muhammad's mother was a harlot, prostitute,
a
a
lady of
whore, a whore,
negotiable affections.
a whore, something like that, right? So anyway, but I was thinking, well, so what? So what? It wouldn't matter if she's a mass murderer. She could be a mass murderer all her entire life. That wouldn't affect Muhammad, but you're saying it actually does.
Yes, that it cuts at the base of Islam itself. It cuts at the base of how Muslims are supposed to know what is truth is wrapped up into this. So, really before we dive into those details, I would like to kind of give an outline as to these 5 points that really affect uh, what Islam's claims about itself, Muhammad's claims about himself, and that prevent Islam from being true if his mother did not have him through the father who is credited for him. If he was really illegitimate, then Islam cannot be true. It's funny because some of the problems Muhammad made for himself, because what did he say about adoption? You can't have adoption. You have to count sons through their biological fathers. And so, what would that be with Muhammad if he isn't from the Hashemites? Well, then he's not from that clan. He's not who he says he is. So, if we can, well, it's just text, but I'm going to drop in the chat a link to my series of articles that lays all this out so everyone can go over it later, catch up with it, everything else.
I already put it. I also put it in the description.
Awesome.
So let me make sure
Awesome.
it's there. Yes, link to your articles on this topic. is in the description. Do you want me to pop what you have on the screen up?
Yeah, we can look at it just for a moment, and we'll take it down in just a minute. So
All
this
right,
is the first article
here we go.
that's about how Muhammad's mother disproves Islam because of the illegitimacy cover-up, and there are 5 points here that we're gonna go over that make Islam not true if Muhammad is not from Abdullah ibn Muttalib. All right, and we can go ahead and go back to our faces so people don't have to look at the text because they don't like looking at text. So, first of all, Muhammad taught that he was a descendant of Ishmael. And not only is he a descendant of Ishmael, it matters because the previous scriptures are predicting this Ishmaelite prophet. If he is not from Abdullah, then he has no paternal lineage. He's from whoever. He cannot make this claim. So, and in the Quran it has Abraham and Ishmael standing together going, oh, there's going to be a prophet coming from you. Well, if he's not from them, then that's not Muhammad. Even if these claims that this Ishmael prophet is totally legitimate, totally exists, and totally is prophesied, as soon as you get to the fact that Muhammad's father is unknown, he can't make that claim. You cannot make a claim to a paternity that you have no evidence that you have a claim to.
So he wouldn't be able to link himself to his clan or to Ishmael, as they so love, because we wouldn't know who his dad is.
Well, specifically Ishmael is the first point, because it's Ishmael that's the big one that's supposed to be prophesied in Scripture. Mm-hmm. Well, the second one is his clan. He can't link himself to his clan either. And in the Ahadith, what does it say? Why does it say that Allah picked him? He picked him from the best of peoples, who are the Arabs, from the best of tribes, who are the Quraysh, and from the best of clans, the Hashemites. If he's not a Hashemite, then Allah is like wrong.
Allah got the wrong guy.
Allah got the wrong guy.
or Allah was duped by the propaganda. In other words,
yeah.
Allah may have been duped by the little plot of Momo's mom.
Yeah, or he, maybe everyone. I know this is. Hang on. This is gonna be crazy. Muhammad was making it up. That could also.
Huh.
I know, right?
And I guess if his mom was making things up, maybe maybe Muhammad got that gene.
So another point is that Muhammad doesn't have divine knowledge. He doesn't have knowledge from God. If he doesn't know that women generally, and his mother specifically, can't have natural pregnancies for years and years, it's because the reason why you're supposed to believe in Islam, among other things, is that this is the deen of God. That God is supposed to have given people a way, a pattern. They know, God's telling you how to leave your inheritance to these various people, and family matters are very, very important. The first revelation that Muhammad gets is about human reproduction. And he's getting revelation from God about human reproduction. Yet his system, supposedly from God, has fundamental errors in it because Muhammad doesn't know how long babies gestate for. So because of the claims of Islam, because of how it's supposed to work, because it's supposed to be the system that especially regulates the family, who should be counted as whose, how many wives should you have, what son should get what, and that kind of thing. That is all built in. And if Allah doesn't know who counts as a child of someone, then everything else is going to be nonsense.
This would tie into that hadith where Muhammad was asked 3 questions from the Jews, and they had the 3 questions. It's like, what's the first meal gonna be? After at the resurrection, what's the first meal gonna be, and what's gonna be the sign that it's here? And then, why does a child sometimes resemble the father's side and sometimes resemble the mother's side? Now, 2 of those we can't test. We can't test whether the first meal is going to be, what did he say, lobe of fish liver or something like that. Yeah. And then, his sign of the end of time, you can't test that until it actually gets here. But there's the one answer that he gave that we can actually test and we know is wrong is that he said, whoever puts out their fluid first.
Yeah, it resembles you more.
Yeah, will resemble that side. And that's complete nonsense, guys, from a biological perspective. It's complete idiotic nonsense. And so the one thing that we could test him on, he got completely, utterly, totally wrong. But keep in mind, I wouldn't have a problem with it if he was just, saying, here's what I think. But he claimed he got that from the angel Gabriel, the same place he was getting the Quran from. You also find this two Siemens theory in the Quran. And so he's wrong on all this stuff, which calls all that into question. And so you're saying we actually have, on top of all that, we have another reason not to trust Muhammad on some of this stuff. He didn't even know that pregnancies don't last 4.5 years.
Right. Had no idea. Fourth, Muhammad claims his prophethood is supported by his own reputation for honesty among his fellow Qurayshis. And again, there are testable things and untestable things. Muhammad made lots of claims as to why the Qurayshi people should believe him. Like, why should my tribe believe me? And he told them untestable things, or things where they got back like people saying no, but then Muhammad said they lied, is that, go to the Jews and the Christians. They'll totally back me up. They all know that I'm telling the truth. They all know that this is real. And what happens when he goes to the Jews and Christians actually go, no, this is not, he's making stuff up. This isn't true. And they're liars. So that's not something they could actually test. But one of the major reasons, aside from go to the Jews and Christians, my revelation perfectly matches what they already have, the third reason that they are supposed to believe him is because of his existing reputation for honesty. It is not just Muhammad who didn't know how long babies gestated for. The Quraysh did not know how long it took to make a baby because of their believing women who said that they were pregnant 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So, and they understood that, 9 months is typical, but they thought that, babies can go to sleep for a while in the womb for years and years and then can be woken up and then be born. That's what they believe. And they got this belief system because of their own ability to determine who is honest and who wasn't. So if you have people whose entire honesty censor system is so messed up that they think that women who say that they've been pregnant 6 years are honest women telling the truth, then saying you should believe me because you used to say I was honest, doesn't really hold any water. So Muhammad's only proof of prophecy that isn't trivially disproven today with what we have now, which is that the Quran doesn't match anything, and Jews and Christians know that what he's saying isn't what they believe. The other thing is supposed to be his honesty. And that's a worthless metric. And Allah should not have used that as a metric because Allah should know that it's worthless, if nothing else.
So their entire system for determining what's true and false, what's reliable and what's unreliable would be massively undermined if all their information about who got pregnant by who and so on, because this isn't just Muhammad's mom. This is all kinds of women back then. And if they're deciding how long pregnancies last based on the reliability of the people who are talking about it, then these guys their entire epistemology is screwed up and you can't trust anything they say. So this would be kind of connected to some of the other issues that arise. Like they'll say, Bukhari got it right, but Ibn Ishaq and all these earlier guys, they got it wrong. And it's like, wait a minute, anything that got to Bukhari came through that first century. If the first century guys were all completely unreliable, like Muslims today say about the story of the satanic verses, because for the first century and a half, there was a consensus that happened. Everyone said that happened. If you're saying these guys are idiots and they didn't know how to tell which story is true and which story is false, then how do we trust anything these guys came up with? But on top of that, they're so incredibly stupid. It's how do we decide how long a pregnancy lasts? Well, let's take a poll of all these women, and when they're telling us that their pregnancy lasted 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, we'll just believe them all. Anything they say, as long as they otherwise seem reliable.
And that's kind of the fifth big point, the one that is really the gotcha for all of Islam, is that the Isnad system. So that was about verifying Muhammad as a prophet in his day. But whenever you go past his own day, you go into the Isnad system. And in the Isnad system, what you have the reputation of honesty that determines whether or not what should be taken from someone should be relied upon. And the Quran itself has a chain of recitation. The Quran that you use is reliable because of the people in that chain. There are all kinds of problems with that chain, but one of them is that the method that they use to determine who's a liar and who's a super honest person classifies women who say that they have been pregnant for 2, 4, 6, 9 years as totally honest, reliable, virtuous, hardworking women. And I actually have a couple of quotes down here about the legislation concerning pregnancy lengths that take this into account. So before anyone says, "Oh well, it's women. Who cares what women say? It only matters what men say." No. Al-Zuri says the Sunnah has been, so the Sunnah, the practice of the Prophet has been to permit the testimony of women in matters that no one else can see, such as women's births and their defects. So the testimony of a midwife alone is permissible in the case of first birth, and the testimony for 2 women is permissible in other cases. So what does this get us? So we have in Nasab al-Raya by Jamal al-Din al-Zayla'i. He records a hadith that says that Aisha said, a woman, someone saying to Ibn Anas, saying to him, Aisha said that a woman doesn't have pregnancies longer than 2 years, and Malik ibn Anas was offended by this. He's like, well, Aisha's just giving her opinion. She's not giving anything from the Prophet, and she's never been pregnant. What does she know? And he says, "Glory be to Allah, who says such a thing. Here is our neighbor, the wife of Muhammad ibn Ajlan. She is a truthful woman, and her husband is a truthful man. She bore 3 pregnancies in 12 years, each pregnancy lasting 4 years." Mm-hmm. And another hadith in this chain is, and the statement of Umar that the wife of a missing person must wait for 4 years seemed to have been based on the possibility of a pregnancy lasting 4 years. So Aisha's own belief that she had gathered from her experience, that is overruled by the testimony of these virtuous people. And Umar himself, he's part of 2 different prolonged pregnancy stories. So one of them is that a righteous woman known for her goodness and piety. She was left by her husband who went to war. He was subsequently killed and martyred, and she grieved for him deeply. She later married another man, but less than 6 months into the new marriage, she gave birth to a full-term baby, basically. Umar intended to stone her because she was an adulteress. And in Umar's view, as stated in his famous sermon on the Sahih, pregnancy was considered proof of adultery if a woman had no husband. However, as he prepared to carry out the sentence, he inquired about her and found that she was a virtuous woman. It was deemed highly unlikely for her to commit adultery, given her known uprightness and piety. Being a man of intuition and inspiration, he refrained from stoning her and wished to consult the people. So he consulted the immigrants, but found no answer. He consulted the Ansar, but found no answer. Then he gathered all his people, but still found no answer. Finally, he gathered the women and consulted them. So before this, he was just asking men. Now he gathers the women, he asks them. An elderly woman known for her wisdom, stood up and said, O leader of the faithful, I shall tell you her story. This woman conceived from her first husband, but when grief struck her, the fetus settled. It became dormant or weakened in sleep and failed to emerge at its usual time. When she married the second man, the physical intimacy of the second husband stimulated it, and she gave birth to the fetus before its new time. Umar praised Allah that he had not stoned her. He dropped the prescribed punishment against her and attributed the child to the first husband. This event was also found in several other sources. One of them emphasizes her virtue even more. This woman is pregnant for 4 years. She's described this way. She's a righteous woman known for her goodness and righteousness, who is absent from her husband, etc., etc. And then again, he inquired about her and found that she was a righteous woman and that it was unlikely that she had committed adultery. What was known of her uprightness and righteousness. So, and there are all kinds of other hadith about these righteous women who are known to be good and righteous, who have had pregnancies that are 2-4 years and longer. And so this has been codified in Islam and Sharia, that pregnancies have longer than 9-month periods that they last. And while there is a difference of opinion, these differences of opinion, because there is not consensus on exactly how long it could last, the correct interpretation is to use these differences of opinion as a mercy and therefore go with the more lenient ones as the correct interpretation. This is basic Islamic jurisprudence. So we have Allah who ordained for people a system that does not allow people to realize that women cannot be pregnant for 4 years. That is their method for truth. And that's their method for all truth, is a system that yields this absolutely ridiculous result that caused Westerners to go, Europeans to kind of laugh at them, everyone else to laugh at them, like, who are these silly people who think that people could be pregnant for years and years? Oh, you silly, misinformed, ignorant people. So they had a standard which was startlingly ignorant to all the surrounding cultures, even in their time, as their ground for truth.
Yeah, guys, think about all of that, and then think about how Mary is applying that to how they do history, right? Because it's a similar methodology. So think, guys. So a woman can get married. A woman can get married to a husband and then all of a sudden have a baby after, in this case, Mary mentioned it was 6 months. After 6 months, she has a full-term baby. And they think, that's mighty quick for that baby to grow that quickly, right? So you'd think, obviously, this woman had sex before she was married to this guy, and Umar's ready to stone her. Asks around, can't get any solution from the guys, but then a wise woman says, no, this is from her previous husband years ago. She divorced him, and then the baby just kind of, fell asleep as a little tiny baby and was just sleeping for, years. And then she married a new guy, and then that guy started having sex with her, and that kind of woke the little fetus up. And then the fetus started growing and then was born. And they buy that obvious nonsense, complete lie. That woman the original woman knew what she did. She knew what she did. She knew how she got pregnant, right? But whatever their criteria are for judging that a person's testimony is completely reliable in this situation, they said she meets the criteria. So does the woman who said, babies can just lie dormant for years and so on. So we're concluding that pregnancies can last years. It's like, wait a minute, that doesn't. Who are we going to listen to? The biologists? Come on. No, we can't do that. We have to listen to these women based on whether we have evaluated them as trustworthy. Why is that really relevant? Well, that's the same methodology for deciding whether hadiths are true. They look at every person on the list in the isnad chain and say, yep, that guy was reliable, that guy was reliable, that guy was reliable. Wait a minute, we know for a fact, you're accepting women as reliable who are obviously lying and making things up. So you have a really screwed up system for deciding whether someone can be trusted or not, but that's your entire basis for how you do history. Oh, this person was trustworthy. This person was trustworthy. This person was trustworthy. Therefore, we trust the obviously absurd and made up story that came later. I'm saying that because there are all kinds of hadiths that we know are just complete nonsense, but it still meets all their requirements. So nope, it's a perfectly good story, and everyone on that list is reliable. Well, guess what? We know how screwed up your system for determining whether someone can be trusted is. And so if you guys actually couldn't tell that when a woman says she's been pregnant for 4 years is making something up, and you say, nope, she has a good reputation, so we'll believe that babies, can be in there for 4 years. Okay, now you guys just have a screwed up system, and we can't trust your stuff. But that doesn't just apply to the women; it applies to their entire system of doing history. So it's all screwed up. Their history, their whole history comes crumbling down.
So people are asking, who's peeing? I was pouring my tea. No one's peeing.
That was me, guys. I had to go. What do you want me to do? Yeah. If there's ever a peeing noise, just blame me. What do I care? I don't care. Let me check this real quick. So, Light Lord says, "Yo, Apologetics Roadshow. Did you hear Duck Lips say the Torah is 100% preserved?" No, but that would mean Islam is false. But it's good he's acknowledging that, because that is what the Quran says. Let's take these first couple of super chats and then.
Well, there's a little oopsie problem with that, though, because the Quran takes from the Talmud instead of the Torah.
Oopsie.
Anytime that there's a detail, they're always taking the Talmud version. So
yeah, the channel Defending Line, he's been on a couple times. Probably have him on again here in the near future, but. Yeah, he estimates like 70% of the stories and stuff in the Quran are actually taken from the Talmud, which is interesting because Muslims love to complain about the Talmud, and that's where their God and their prophet got all their information from. Weird stuff. Super sticker from Ida. Thanks, Ida. Could it be Warak? Could it be Waraka as his father?
I seriously doubt it. I don't think she has any idea who his father was.
Oh, he said, could it be? And
I
think we would say it could have been any guy in the town, for all we know.
She was a town bicycle, so it could have been anybody.
Yeah, could have been anyone in the town or anyone who was traveling through the town, for all we know. If Mary's theory is correct, we'll have to see. So Muhammad was her name. Muhammad was her name. Very rude, very Islamophobic. Muhammad's mother is innocent until proven guilty in the court of this live stream. So my theory is Mo's father is not a guy named Abdullah, son of Abdul Muttalib, but a person with a title Abdullah, those who serve as a temple-only fan. Hi, Mary. Quick question. Didn't a few early Christians think that he was an Ishmaelite too? Were they going off of what he claimed, or I misremembered?
No. So what was happening is Muhammad was running around going, oh, I'm like Moses, and then making up things about Moses that weren't true to make them more similar. And the Jews are like, what are you talking about? You're an Arab. We consider Arabs to be Ishmaelites. You have to understand that the Jewish way, especially the ancient Jewish way of viewing belonging to a lineage, was not strictly biological. It was ethnic identity. So they don't really care whether or not he is a bodily descendant of Ishmael if he is an Arab. But according to Allah cares very much who your actual father is, and that's the only thing that matters. So they are just saying that based upon their identification of Arabs as Ishmaelites generally, that since he is an Arab in identity, he is an Ishmaelite. Not saying that that's a good thing, but saying that that disqualifies you from being a prophet like Moses. Like, I don't think Muhammad was actually trying to be the prophet like Moses. He was just trying to compare himself to Moses because he's the most famous guy. And the Jews are like, well, that would mean then that you have to be this prophet and you can't be this prophet because you're this other group and they're excluded out of this the Israelite group. You're not an Israelite. That was their point. But he ran away from that. Oh, you're saying that I have an ancestor who is in your text, so clearly I am the prophet that you expected from this line. And they're like, that's not what we said at all. So that was probably what's going on.
I would not be surprised if some Muslims argue that it was a miracle and that Muhammad was in the womb for years, like doing what? Very crazy. That's the thing. It doesn't seem to be something miraculous. They just thought that pregnancies can last years, and they thought this about women in general. Pregnancies can last a long time. Little fetuses can go to sleep for years and then be woken up. Wait, Islam is a false religion? Well, we don't know. Might be true. Might be the truth. D. Wood will stream with everyone except Mike Winger. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I'd stream with everyone, but I would stream with anyone before I would stream with Mike Winger. So yeah, that's great. Muhammad got his semen theory from Jibril Dihya al-Kalbi. he got his semen theory from Momo's mom.
Semen theory. Yes.
Momo's mom was the village bike. Yep, Mary beat you to that one. If women only have half a brain, what does that say about the men who believe them about 4-year pregnancy? Yeah, it seems like the guys have a quarter of a brain if they're believing that nonsense. I could listen to you tell stories all day. I like your enthusiasm. That's cool. So his mom also had the strength of 30 men. She might have had the strength of way more. Sorry, maybe I missed it. Is the pregnancy topic in the Quran? No. I mean, you have issues with the Quran making huge blunders in how reproduction works and so on. But this would be from the hadiths and so on.
Yep.
I was carried until 10 months when they decided to induce. Concerned about this lazy. I came out all bluish and no more coating. I was lucky to be removed when I was. They really can't go longer. Well, 10 months. 10 months, plus another 4 years or so. And that's how long things can work. 4 years, 6 years, 8 years. Who's counting? Amina bore the seal of the prophets, yet her seal was broken wider than the breach at Uhud. This is very rude. Amina, daughter of Wahab, whose virtue vanished like Abdullah into the grave. I can keep going. No. Guys, we're trying not to hurt anyone's feelings with all this. I really wanted to write an awesome comment, but YouTube will not let me. So just hello. Hope you're all doing well. Ida, I know how that works, man. I'll be sitting there watching someone's live stream. I'll go for the super chat and have to write it and rewrite it 20 times before it lets it through. And by that time, the moment has passed. Off topic, but will you watch Son of the 11th Hour? God bless. Never heard of it, so probably not.
I don't know. Yes.
And last one, Dizzle, we have a video coming out about our street ministry in Sharia Lakemba. If you wanted to have a watch, it will be on our channel, Evangel. Yeah, send me when that's up. Let me know. I am interested in how things are going down in that horrible criminal island. So fun watching you from the safe room. Thank you for keeping me company during the all boom boom. Yeah. Yeah, Ida, I was preparing a vid. I was hoping to record it before we went live, but didn't work out. But yeah, I'm recording a video that'll be up tomorrow. That'll be my video tomorrow, unless something just goes horribly wrong and a meteor hits the house or something. But about the whole Netanyahu's dead thing, that's just the video is not really about Netanyahu being alive. It's about how people gave up on the mainstream media because they didn't trust them anymore and they thought they're all biased. And so they go to alternative media and social media and so on, started getting their information there. But it's like anyone can say anything at this point and people all around the world run with it. And so I saw a U.S. aircraft carrier sunk by the Iranians. Over and over again, I saw that. I saw multiple U.S. jets shot out of the sky by Iran. And then, of course, Netanyahu and a bunch of his family members and stuff, they all died. And then when he appears in a coffee shop, that's AI. It's an AI. He's actually dead. This is AI. he's not actually in a coffee shop. And it's like, wait a minute. Now you can say anything you want. You can make up anything you want. And anyone who responds, you can say that's AI, right? Like, so suppose you really believe that the USS Abraham Lincoln, the aircraft carrier, was sunk by Iran. Well, what if people all of a sudden, well, look, here I am on board the USS Abraham Lincoln. It seems to be floating pretty well. That's just AI. We know it really sank. And it's like, oh gosh, we are headed for some stupid dark times, because this is just getting started. But anyway, that's what the video is about. But I'm using the Netanyahu thing as an example. Imam ran away. It's me from yesterday. Love D Wood. Ah, really? The Imam ran away? Dang. In my case, it was the alarms that interrupted me writing for it for the 20th time. And then bring on Issa. No, Issa will become enraged. He'll be like, how dare you say that? How dare you say that about Muhammad's beloved mother? David, it has been 30 days. You have not made a video on the Islamic trilemma. Now for your $5 punishment. Oh yeah, I did forget that. I do want to make that. Yeah, I didn't get it in the timeline, but yeah, I will get to that. Because yeah. All right. So Mary has pointed out that ordinarily, matter of fact, let me just look at something real quick, because I posted on X. Let me see. I posted on X this morning. Tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll examine the latest research on whether Muhammad's mother was a prostitute. Okay. Notice I wasn't condemning anything, just saying, hey, that's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at. And so we have Zach came in here. He's cool, ex-Muslim. He said, would it be more fruitful to engage with Muslims by way of dismantling their presuppositions of believing that the Torah was corrupted, that Muhammad was an Ishmael like that of Muhammad, was a prophet, and that Abraham and Ishmael built the Kaaba?
But you see, we are addressing fundamental, and that's the thing. People are like, oh, you're just doing low blows. It's like, no, this actually strikes at the root of Islam. Yep. Your source of knowledge. How do you know anything is true? And specific claims Muhammad made about himself.
Yeah. And as far as this issue, would it be more fruitful? It's like there's no either or here. We can
do both.
Yeah, we can do both. We can do both. And as Mary's pointing out, like even if we don't conclude that Muhammad's mom was a prostitute, just the other things that she's bringing up, those still stand. That still stands as a point that if these guys think, based on women saying, no, I didn't commit adultery, that was my pregnancy from 4 years ago. If they're believing this nonsense, that kind of calls things into question about their their ability to determine when someone is telling the truth and someone is lying and stuff. So,
and there are two specific points. Actually, there are 3 points that still stand, even if Muhammad himself were not illegitimate. Only 2 of my 5 points, each of which independently disproves Islam, falls. The other 3 stand still.
Yep. So guys, this is totally, absolutely relevant, and we need to discuss things like this. But I just wanted to kind of show the different kinds of reactions. Eunice here says, do you think this is bringing people closer to Christianity? Well,
away from Satan, so that would be, at least no further from. If you're further from Satan.
Yeah. So this specifically, this right here is not preaching the gospel. This is showing Muslims that they got some problems with what they've been taught and their methodology and stuff like that. And in my experience, Muslims usually don't take the gospel seriously if they have complete trust in Islam. So yes, absolutely. Very relevant to call these things into question and expose these things. If you were in England, you'd get 3 years in jail. Yep. People of Mecca calling Muhammad along the lines of palm tree growing on the hillside, meaning his father is unknown. There are many proofs from the hadith. Interesting.
Oh, I forgot about that one. I have other ones where the Meccans who opposed him, called him illegitimate. Like that was their number 1 insult. So.
Interesting. if not possible concerning her brilliant pregnancy and so on.
But again, this is not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be miraculous. The length of time is not supposed to be miraculous. And actually, that thing about Islamic marriage, quote unquote, being a form of prostitution, that actually does figure into this. Mm-hmm. That is relevant to this as well.
And so then we have these kinds of things. So here he's quoting the story of Judah and Tamar, right? And I guess the idea is we're just going to say, ha ha, Muhammad's mom was a prostitute, can't trust Islam. No, not the point at all.
I am, however, dedicating this stream, I want everyone to know, to Malik. Malik did inspire me to bring together this information into a single stream, because I've been talking about this for years, but I had not compiled everything together to present in an orderly way on only this topic. Mm-hmm. This was inspired by the poor behavior of Malik. He has now inspired 3 streams.
Malik has inspired basically all of 2026 as far as polemics against Muhammad and the Quran. Yeah, but people jump to the conclusion here. Oh, look! So you're saying if someone's a prostitute, then the entire system is a lie? No. By the way, notice the difference. Someone's a prostitute in the Bible. They just say it. They just say it. Right? That makes me trust it more. Why are you putting a prostitute in the genealogy of the Messiah? And the answer is that's just what happened, right? And they don't cover it up. You don't find in the Muslim sources, oh, by the way, Muhammad's mom was a prostitute. Yeah. No, she's great and wonderful, and yes, and women can be pregnant for many years and so on. And we look through this and hey, something else is going on here.
So Mufti Abu Kabsha is actually a funny name because he is using the name Ibn Abu Kabsha is the name that Muhammad was called to say that he was illegitimate, that his father was someone else. So he's actually referencing the slurs against people.
So here we have more on Tamar and probably Rahab and so on. People not getting the point. It's weird they don't try to understand what the point is before responding to the point. Just go and worship a man born in Middle East. Your God was actually in a woman's womb. Hell will be your home if you don't turn to pure monotheism. You just keep digging yourself a bigger hole in hell. Your soul must be screaming at you to stop.
No, it actually gives me enormous peace and satisfaction to have more people understand the fundamental rot at the heart of Islam. Because some people actually fall for this isnad nonsense that, don't you think that the best way to know the truth is to hear from a truthful person? Like, no, first of all, people can just not remember things well. So no, I would much rather have things written down immediately. But secondly, who has established this person as truthful? How good are they at establishing someone as truthful? So we already have human errancy, right? Mm-hmm. But then on top of that, who calls them truthful? Who says this person is truthful? Who says who's not truthful? Well, now we know what kind of standard they have for this. And you really can't escape this.
Yep. And what do? Straw man everything. Yep. Don't even listen, and they straw man everything. So check this out. The prophet's lineage is pure and honorable. However, in the Bible, the genealogy of Jesus Christ in the Gospel of Matthew 1 includes a woman named Rahab. According to the book of Joshua 2, Rahab is described as a prostitute. Explain that. Explain what? Yeah, Rahab was a prostitute. She realized God was on the side of the children of Israel who were coming. And she said, I'm going to side with you guys.
And what did she do after that? Did she go around sleeping around more? No.
Nope.
No, in fact, she did not. She got married and had an honorable child.
And so, yeah, guys, if you're interpreting what we're saying as, hey, if a woman has a bad background, she can't ever do anything. That's the opposite of what the Bible teaches. That's the opposite of what the Bible teaches. And it's not anything remotely resembling what we're saying right now. This guy got spanked by Muhammad Hijab years ago in a debate. He keeps fabricating things and presenting this fact. Well, why don't you guys respond to this stuff instead of whining?
Yeah. Come and talk about this stuff.
Look at this. F your mom and sister upper. You son of, may people tie you to a cross and, oh my goodness.
Yeah, just like,
Gotta love these guys.
again, filth, filth.
Yeah.
And again, this is the best nation, by the way. The best nation, according to this guy, Martin here, is full of women who are considered honorable and truthful. They're best of women who claim to be pregnant for 2, 4, 5, 8 indefinite numbers of years.
Yeah.
These are their best women. This is the example of their honesty and truthfulness and honorableness and chastity. These are their chaste women who are pregnant for many years.
Yep, here we have Muhammad founded and built the most strongest and best nation forever. That's why you are jealous. That's reasons for your envy and the filth you inherited from Satan and the devils. David, unfortunately, you didn't have any qualifications to follow Muhammad and the law light. Well, powerful. I imagine your torment in hell. Your false three God will need not be able to save you. And so anyway, haha, this is more proof you're a Zio agent. And yeah, so many trigger Muhammad.
Why would this have anything to do with the Jews?
Because Netanyahu, oh wait, he couldn't pay me. He's apparently dead according to these guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, someone paid me though. This must be your daddy. Reminds me of you. I wonder what you actually went to prison for the first time, you perverted bigot.
So again,
Crackhead,
here they are attacking Muhammad, who had sex with a 9-year-old. By like, yeah, you pedos have sex with 14-year-olds. Pedos. Like, dude.
Tonight at 8 p.m., you should sit in a tub and do it to your god Baal. So anyway, these are these guys. Allah defended her from your claims. We will see if you laugh making these claims about women. This is going too far. No matter religion differences, why will anyone refer to Prophet Muhammad's mom as a prostitute? Well,
because she was.
Yeah, if we think there's evidence, then we're just gonna say it. And so anyway, your God's mother was literally, the Jews say so, and I trust them. And check this out. This guy's a Muslim because it's Mike Frazier and stuff. But I went and checked it. I know who's the prostitute rapist who does this to his dead son. So anyway. This is how they respond during Ramadan, everyone. Welcome to Ramadan 2026. Hey, my camera cut. That's weird.
Yep, it did. I'll hear all alone. Look at all the chaos I could cause.
Here, I'll just put you up for a second. Anyway, it seems like this is kind of a sore spot. Not like Muhammad's sore spot after the night of Al-Zut, but isn't it weird? Like, they always have an opportunity to be nice. When I'm about to bring something up, and that would affect. If people are being nice and saying, "Hey, come on, let's talk about this and take a closer look at this, but let's make sure we're, let's avoid the insults this time." I wouldn't have any problem with it. But it's always, we will destroy you, we will mock you, we will mock your dead son.
Yeah.
Oops.
They really know how to charm people. The old adage, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. They totally studied that one.
Yes, we only like vinegar.
Yeah, no kidding. So, if you are saying, I've already established that women are popping up all over the place with supposed pregnancies of 2, 4, 5, whatever years. And sometimes they're like, it runs in families. This whole family, every woman that they married, somehow it runs in families, but it's the wives who are all, and I kind of wonder what's up with the men that these women, like every single man, women are running around on them. But somehow it runs in the families, but it's the women who marry into the families who supposedly all have these long pregnancies. But
yeah, wild, weird stuff.
Yes.
All right. I think my camera, I don't know if it's my computer or the camera, or I just haven't updated something, but let's see. All right. And there we go. All right.
Woohoo.
We're
all
back.
Right. So if you can bring up my presentation, there's a picture here of a woman who is in the Olid Nail tribe, who was known in northern Africa for their business ventures in the direction of being dancing girls and prostitutes before marriage. This was a a pre-Islam. This may have been introduced by the Arabs coming in, who heavily affected, because the Arab culture was not very well Islamicized when it came into these areas. They were officially Muslims, but they were doing all of their pre-Islamic practices. And now they only do the pre-Islamic practices that are mostly labeled as Islamic at this point. But up through into the 20th century, between the two world wars, these women were still practicing they would send their young girls out. The young girls would prostitute themselves for money for several years, come back with the money, and set up their households that way. And this was in no way abnormal. This was not, these are the respectable and chaste women of this tribe practice this. How could they be respectable and chaste? Well, they define the words differently. When you go back to the Bible, we have Arab women being synonymous with road whores. So when God is condemning the Israelites and comparing them to the most depraved types of women in their idolatry, who do they choose to compare them to? Arab women. And they don't even bother to say Arab women who are prostitutes. It was synonymous. So in Jeremiah 3:2, you get, raise your eyes to the bare heights and see, where have you not been violated? So what are on the heights? The idols. You have sat for them, the idols, like you have sat for them by the roads like an Arab in the desert, an Arab woman in the desert, that's feminine. And you have defiled the land with your prostitution and your wickedness. So if you saw an Arab woman by a road, what was she doing in this Iron Age context? Well, she was prostituting herself. Well,
Seems
what
like
do we find?
they had a reputation, bit of a
Yes.
reputation. That's like, so guys, you have different groups have certain reputations. Always interesting when a group has a different reputation for different people. Like when I was growing up, Polish jokes were about Polish people being dumb, right? That's what Polish jokes were, right? AP grew up in Germany, and he said they also had Polish jokes, but it was always about them being thieves and stuff. So they had depending on where you were, they had a reputation as dumb or as thieves. But we can see even among the prophets, Arab women had a reputation.
Yep. And if you can take that off now, I just wanted to share that very briefly so that people would know that I had an actual source for that this was understood at that time as, if you say an Arab woman by the highway, what's she doing? She's prostituting herself. When Muhammad's troops went out on campaigns, at first Muhammad's like, oh, Muhammad's pretending to be like the Jews and Christians. So he's like, stop all this fornication, guys. You need to stop all this fornicating that you're doing all the time. And the men are like, but we can't take our women with us when we go in the desert. Do you want us to castrate ourselves? It's just so terrible. And so what did Muhammad do? He said, oh, you can go ahead and contract with whom? The women who are hanging around the roads, all the Arab women hanging around the roads, happily prostituting themselves. Women would hear, people coming by a roadway and would be like, oh, opportunity to make some cash. Let's go over there. Hey, anybody want to buy this? And then they would negotiate.
And Muhammad's companions were like, yes, we would, but we have to be married for the next 3 hours.
But that's the thing. The idea, the word is nikah muta, which is just pleasure intercourse is actually what it means, or consummation. It's not a mahar, it's not an extended contract. All Muhammad said was, well, he thought about it for a moment. He's like, well, what is marriage? What is marriage? Well, you pay for the access to a woman's body, her vagina to gestate your children, or excuse me, her uterus to gestate your children, and her vagina for your pleasure. And that's what you are purchasing with a mahar. And then you are maintaining that with maintenance. But what's prostitution? It's the same thing, just without the maintenance, for a shorter period of time. You're just buying her, just like you buy a wife in an Islamic marriage, because they use the same words, but they have different definitions. There is no companionate marriage. There is no idea of a marriage and the union of two people into one household in Arab culture or in Islam today, because you can have 4 wives. How can you possibly be a union of two? The woman's still in another house, and that house is the husband's, and the husband is paying her maintenance for sexual access to her. And with this transactional view of what's going on in Islamic law, marriage is the cousin to slavery. Marriage and slavery are tied together. There's a book by Ketia Ali called Marriage and Slavery in Early Islamic Law, which is all about it. All of these things were defined in this way, that what you're doing is you are buying the milk, not like cow milk, but it's spelled the same in transcription, but it means dominion. You're purchasing the dominion over the woman. So when you're buying a prostitute for 2 hours, what are you doing? You're purchasing access to her for those 2 hours. So Muhammad's like, well, fine, you can just have a prostitute wife. That nothing wrong with that. It's very similar to what we're already doing. The two things that Islamic marriage is a combination of is prostitution and slavery, which are already united heavily in Arab and Islamic law. So that also removes some of the cultural barriers to prostitution, because when your mother was sold to your father and she was paid for, because it is transactional, because she is being paid for her services, even later on with maintenance, she is already reduced to a prostitute's level in a very fundamental way in the view of the culture. And so the line between wife and prostitute is just not that strong. The distinctions are not that great. There is some kind of normalized prostitution in every single Islamic country to this day through urfa marriage, which are unregistered, basically little different from muta marriages. There is misyar marriage, which is very similar to urfa marriage. There is still muta marriage in Shia Islam. They have all of these systems that are set up to replicate these things because their fundamental view of what they call marriage is so similar to prostitution in the first place. It's so similar to slavery, so similar to prostitution. And so you don't have these hard lines. When you go back to, and if you want to clarify on that, Jeremiah 3:2 does say that. Just look at it.
Yeah, that's why I put it up on the screen. What do you mean?
You can check the Hebrew. It says that.
Yeah, so. I just wanted this person to, let's see, Martha Cooper. Martha Cooper, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
What did you go to? So if you go to certain translations, like the NIV and so on, it'll say nomad or something like that. Those aren't literal translations. Go to a literal translation. So ESV is a literal translation. NASB is a literal translation. They say Arab. Why? Because that's what it actually says.
The Hebrew is Arab. Yeah. The Hebrew is Arab. That's why I went to New American Standard Bible, which everyone should know is a quite literal translation as far as the directions go. The reason why some add other things is because whenever we go Arab in the desert, we don't go an Arab woman by the highway. We don't go, that's a prostitute, which is what the immediate audience of these people went. It lacks that meaning. So, and wilderness, desert, same thing.
Yeah, Protestant believer went ahead and posted it like an Arab. So he pointed that out. All right.
Yep. So, because we don't go, oh, Arabs, that must be prostitutes, like they did. Some people gloss it in other ways to make it more comprehensible to modern people who do not have that idea. Just by the way, the ancient association that everyone else had of the Arabs was that the women were prostitutes and the men were liars, which is quite interesting given that, the honesty of both, like the women's their virtue and honesty is supposed to be part of why they're so reliable. But if you go to Aesop's Fables, he tells the story that Hermes went around with a cart to all the nations and gave each nation their portion of deceit and lying and trickery until he reached the Arabian desert, and then his cart tipped over and the Arabs got all the rest. That's what the ancient Greeks thought about these guys. That's what, and you'll find this consistently throughout writings of everyone else, from Aesop into the 20th century, until people went, oh, we can't talk about people this way anymore. It's rude. You'll find people saying, well, yeah, he's an Arab, so he lies. Like, of course he does. That's what they do. This consistent testimony across cultures, across time, across languages. That's what Arabs do. And it's just so remarkable that they have for themselves this image of great honesty, but it's because they define honesty in a different way. The Greeks and the Romans and the Christians all define honesty as saying things that are congruent with reality. But in Arab culture, being honest was saying things that are pleasing to the hearer, if the hearer is a noble person. That was what was defined as honesty. So if you have this fundamental discrepancy in definitions, you'll have a fundamental discrepancy in how people evaluate one another. Which standard is the one that gives you a good thing to stand upon when you're evaluating whether or not Muhammad actually said something, whether or not this is from God? Is it, oh, you say nice things to important people, or, oh, what you say is congruent with reality? That's an issue with the foundations of Islam. It's like on the most rotten base that you could ever imagine. So, turning to the Islamic sources about the different types of marriage that existed before Islam, one of them was called the Bina marriage. And Aisha, of course, she didn't remember anything from pre-Islamic times. She wasn't even born then, right? But she reported on what she understood it to be. She said that another type of marriage is when a group of less than 10 men would assemble and enter upon a woman, and all of them would have sexual relations with her. If she became pregnant and delivered a child, and some days had passed after delivery, she would send for all of them, and none of them would refuse to come. And when they all gathered before her, she would say to them, you all know what you have done, and now I have given birth to a child. So it is your child, so-and-so, naming whoever she liked, and her child would follow him, and he could not refuse to take him. Now, again, Aisha did not live in this time, didn't really have the nuances down, but this did combine several types of marriage, one of which is that this is a polygamous society. There weren't enough women to go around, so a bunch of men might buy a single slave and force her to sleep with them all in turn, and would count her children as their heirs, who are forced to support them at old age and inherit what little they had. But a second form was the fundamental thing that distinguished this from the Mahr marriage is who provides the house, especially, and also the support for the woman. So if the man is paying a Mahr, which is a sum over and above anything that the woman might give him, and he gives her a house and provides her all her sustenance and support, it is a Mahr marriage. In this case, she doesn't have the right to divorce unless she has what's considered a valid complaint against him, according to the nobles of the tribe. And he's allowed to marry as many women as he wanted at this pre-Islamic time. Another form is being a marriage with a free woman. The woman would stay in her own home. She would stay in her own home, and the man would come to her, and he would usually be expected to give her gifts and some level of support, if not complete support, and things like that. But she would maintain her own household, and she could divorce him whenever she liked. Kind of reminds you of, someone Muhammad was married to. His first marriage to Khadija. Whose house did he live in? He lived in hers. Oh, he supposedly borrowed money for some goats to give her mahr, but she gave him Zayd, who was worth far more than what he gave her. It was her money, and so she had the authority then to divorce him whenever she liked. Some women who practice this form of marriage practice it through polyandry, meaning that they would marry multiple men and let multiple men come to them And they would especially do this if they were set up in a place like Medina, where they would have their own household, and then men who were traveling through, they'd marry, 15, 20, 30 men. And every time a man traveled through, because it only traveled through a few times a year, right? He would stay with her, sleep with her, give her gifts, and then move on. And she would stay there. And this is what Abdul Muttalib's mom did in Medina. Abdul Muttalib's mom stayed in Medina while Hashim, his father, only visited her a few times as he was traveling through. She didn't leave. Why? Because she was the proto-Islamic traveler marriage, which later became codified in Islamic law in other forms. So we already have these institutions which would be considered quite indecent officially in Islamic law, but of course get wrapped up in other packages and are totally allowed. But what about Muhammad's own mother? Well, there are some very important aspects to their marriage that tie into this. When Amina when Amina and Abdul ibn Muttalib supposedly married, it explicitly says in Ibn Sa'd that he only spent 3 nights with her because it was the tradition of her family that a man can only spend 3 nights with his wife in the house of her family. So what did Abdullah not do? Abdullah never gave her a house. So there are some very important points in the marriage of Amina and Abdullah that give us a timeline into which Muhammad's birth fits. So Abdullah marries Amina at the same day that Abdul Muttalib marries Hala, her cousin. They're married on the same day. Abdullah is then reported to have supposedly impregnated Amina in those first 3 days that they stayed together. And that first time together, there are all these stories of prophethood that are meant to affirm that during that short time that they were together, this one's funny. Do you want to take that one?
No, the comment? I was making sure I had it saved because this guy's so incredibly dumb. He's just cutting and pasting. Yeah. He's cutting and pasting from a stupid article.
Well, what's even funnier is that there are a bunch of different genealogies from Ishmael, and they conflict because none of them were spoken by Muhammad, and no one has any agreement on how Muhammad traces back to Ishmael. They made that up using Israelite traditions and just copied, pasted stuff in and made stuff up because Muhammad only traced his own family back to Adnan. He did not trace his family back past Adnan. So anything else after that is just made up stuff that people are guessing on and has lots of conflicting information on. But again, if he doesn't know who his father is, all of this is made up anyway.
That's the point. He said, "Look, Muhammad is the fulfillment of the prophecy," and blah blah blah. We'll cover that. We'll cover that between points, buddy. But we'll look at what Isaiah actually says, and, and you're kind of missing the point. If his mom was a prostitute, we don't know who his dad was, and we don't know what his genealogy is. And it doesn't matter if someone over a century later says something when these guys didn't know that women don't stay pregnant 4.5 years. Understand? Anyway.
Yeah. So there are lots of versions of this one story. And the purpose of this story is to be a proof of prophethood. And these early proofs of prophethood were all invented in response to possible things that were shameful about Muhammad, to turn something that discredited him into something that, no, he's a real prophet because of this thing. You think that this thing is shameful, but really, this proves that he's a real prophet. It really does. So the story is that Muhammad was on his way Abdullah was on his way to bang Amina when this woman stops him. So, and this is funny because there are a bunch of different versions, and the most likely one is really hilarious. So this is the most likely one. It is alleged that a woman of Abdullah's that he had on the side, his side piece, so he already had a side piece, which is something that they don't like. she used to say when he passed by her that there was a blaze, like a blaze of a horse. And she said, I invited him hoping that it would be in me, meaning that this light would come into me. But he refused me and went to Amina, and she conceived Muhammad. So that one may have been an actual story that some woman told soon after the time of conquest of Mecca to try to make herself seem important. Like, oh yeah, I secretly knew he was a prophet all along. Because Abdullah used to beg me, and it could have been me who could have been the mother of this prophet. But then it starts getting embroidered and changed to get rid of a lot of the embarrassing things and try to make it better. And the versions get really funny at one point. So at one point they make it Waraka, his sister, who's doing this. So it says that in one version of this, it says that she was well versed in divination. Later on, they didn't realize that this was troublesome because it's saying that she was a witch. So, Qutayla bint Nawfal, sister of Waraka, she was a really good witch, and she knew witchery stuff. And she saw Abdullah walking by, and so she invited him in to have sex with her. And she seized his sheet from one side, trying to pull him in, like, come have sex with me. I'm a witch and I know you're special. And he's like, no, I won't. Wait till I return. He went out, he had sex with Amina, he comes back, and then he's like, what do you say now? Want me now? And she's like, dang it, that light that was there is gone now. I'm not interested in you sexually anymore. And this obviously had a bunch of problems for later Muslims. So they kept editing it. They're like, it was this other woman who was totally Christian, guys. Yeah, she was. She used to read the scriptures, and she was wanting to marry him. She wasn't just offering herself for sex. And then he refused her and was like, this isn't decent. But then it still has him coming back to her, because you need to have him come back for the resolution for her to say, oh, I saw the light and now it's gone. But he supposedly refused her. Why is he coming back to her for sex if he's like, no, this isn't decent? So it's a very funny series of a hadith. And it is on the site with all of the versions as it got more and more embroidered, as people are like, wait, that's embarrassing. Let's fix that. Wait, that's embarrassing. Let's fix that. But the purpose of this was to back up Muhammad's own life story, that when did he get conceived? He got conceived when Abdullah first married Amina. They needed to have him be conceived at that time, because we have in other sources that, Abdullah dies while Amina is still pregnant. Well, how soon was that? And the most accepted narration, it was like approximately 3 months after they married. So they got married 3 months later, Abdullah's dead. And the sources that say he only spent those 3 nights with her, they don't say that he ever spent any more time with her. So in terms of her short-term relationships, she may have already been in only short-term relationships even at this time through these payment methods. And she may have been the bonus to his dad's wedding. She was a cousin, but she was an orphan. Orphans were treated very poorly. And so she might have been offered by her uncle as a bonus for, celebrate the wedding. Here, pay a little bit extra, and your son can have sex with this cousin who's an orphan that we don't care about. So then we get the kicker, which is about Hamza. Hamza was born to Amina's cousin. Hamza was 4 years older than Muhammad. And in fact, it even says that Hamza, that according to the Islamic scholars, Hala was still pregnant with Hamza when Abdullah died. So Hala is pregnant with Hamza. Abdullah dies. Hamza is born. 4 years later, Muhammad is born, and yet it's supposed to be from a pregnancy that happened before the death. So all of these sources together, there are no sources that give any other picture, any other timeline that have any level of acceptance. These are the accepted sources. These are the understood sources. There is one person who says, well, it's only 2 years, but that person is believing that certain things about the wet nurse of both Hamza and Muhammad. It's coming from just guessing about things like, oh, they must have made a mistake. It must have been 2 years, because if she fed Muhammad right after feeding Hamza, then she would have had to have started immediately. So then that would have only been a 2-year gap. And that isn't actually based on any sources, on any history. It's based on a bunch of guesses that this person strung together. But the best sources say 4 years. And that gives you the inescapable conclusion that Muhammad was supposedly pregnant in his mother's womb for 4 years, according to the Islamic narrative, and it is not miraculous. It is just something that happens with Arab women, which means in reality, he's illegitimate. I gotta go get some allergy meds, but I will be right back while you take.
Oh, go ahead. I will go ahead and respond to our Muslim friend here. Yeah, we have a request. One second, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, we know he's just cutting terrible, idiotic stuff from like the absolute dumbest articles to try to distract people. But I'll go ahead and answer him, and if he just keeps cutting and pasting, I'm just going to block him. Or he can actually respond. Sugar Fairy said, "Can you please block the idiot copy paste spammer?" Yeah, well, I'm going to answer first. So look at a couple comments here. Look at a couple of his comments here, and we'll see. So he says, one of the earliest biographies of the Prophet Muhammad, so he actually cites Ibn Sa'd, documents one of the chains of genealogy which confirms that the Prophet was a direct descendant of Ishmael. Not if you don't know who his dad was, sport. And as Mary already pointed out, they gave conflicting genealogies. They were clearly making them up. And you're quoting Ibn Sa'd? That's good to know. You know what else is in Ibn Sa'd? The satanic verses. Suddenly, though, you'll say, nope, can't trust Ibn Sa'd. He didn't know what he's talking about. Interesting stuff. Hey, look, and then he pulls the race card. But racists can't see that the prophet, Isaiah 42:1, to become a light for the Gentiles, Isaiah 42:6, with a new song, 42:10. Interesting. Is Islam known for its new songs? Islam big on music, with a new song and a new law, interesting, is welcomed by Medina in Arabia, Isaiah 42:11, instead of Jerusalem. Oh my goodness, how dumb do you have to be to read the passage like this? Let's go some more. Yes, Isaiah 42 fits perfectly to Prophet Muhammad as it speaks about the rejoice of Arabia and Medina. God battles the blind, deaf, racist Jews who rejects the Arabian prophet. Oh, so dumb. And then here, because God makes the prophet a covenant for the people and a light for the Gentiles, Isaiah 42:6, by defeating idolaters and guiding people with a new law and a new scripture. Well, welcome to how to completely massacre a text with ignorance and stupid dawah. Ignorance and stupid dawah. So this guy this guy says that Sila is actually where Muhammad was. Now, what's the problem here? Well, lots of problems. Let's just look biblically where Sila is. So this is in Kings. Sorry, just got to get it centered up here. This is in Kings. And look what we have here. Look at verse 7. He was the one who defeated 10,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt and captured Sela in battle. Where's Sela? It's a city of the Edomites. Sorry, that ain't Muslims.
Which was ruled by a king of Judah. So, like a king of Judah was able to take it over.
Yeah, Edom was just south of Israel, dude, and it wasn't all the way down south. So you don't even know your basic Bible geography. Why? Because you didn't study this issue. You didn't actually study where Selah. You went to a stupid article and you started cutting and pasting. That's what you guys always do. And you don't realize how dumb you look to anyone who actually reads the passages.
Yeah, you make Muslims look really stupid. I just want to be clear. You make Muslims look incredibly stupid.
Yep, you do. Now here, your your entire case is based on Isaiah 42, right, guys? Let's just read this real quick. And what our friend doesn't know is there are four servant songs. There are four servant songs in Isaiah. In other words, Isaiah, the first part of Isaiah 42 here is one of the servant songs, but there are four of them. And tell me with a straight face, this is Muhammad. So look at what this is saying. By the way, this is the Messiah, guys. This is about the Messiah. Here is my servant whom I uphold, my chosen one in whom I delight. I will put my spirit on him, and he will bring justice to the nations. He will not shout or cry out or raise his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. In faithfulness he will bring forth justice. He will not falter or be discouraged till he establishes justice on earth. In his teachings the islands will put their hope. Anything about Muhammad so far? No.
Well, what's really interesting is that there actually a hadith about how his face used to turn red as he yelled at people when he gave his sermons. So
Yep.
and there's another one about him yelling in the streets, which is pretty hilarious.
Yep.
That he used to go around Mecca and yell at people in the streets. Yeah.
And then we have, this is what God the Lord says, the creator of the heavens, who stretches them out, who spreads out the earth with all that springs from it, who gives breath to its people and life to those who walk on it. I, the Lord, have called you in righteousness. I will take hold of your hand. I will keep you and will make you to be a covenant for the people and a light to the Gentiles, exactly what the New Testament says about Jesus, to open the eyes that are blind, Jesus claimed to do that, to free captives from prison and to release from the dungeon those who sit in darkness.
So a quick question. It's supposed to be that Jews and Christians are going to recognize Muhammad. So if Jesus says who this is about, and he says it is not about Muhammad, would Jews and Christians recognize Muhammad in this, or would they believe Jesus? I think they would, believe Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's supposed to be us recognizing Muhammad.
Yeah.
And the Gospels say that this is about Jesus. Jesus sat there reading the Isaiah scroll, pointing to a similar passage and saying that this has been fulfilled in your sight today. Yep. Today in your sight.
Look at this dope. He just keeps going. So he quotes Jesus. Believe me, woman, Jesus replied, a time is coming when you'll worship the Father, neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. Declaration, Jerusalem no longer be the focus of prayer. And he's going to say, you see, it's Mecca. No, Jesus.
Where's the rest of the verse?
Yeah, read the rest of the verse.
You will worship him in spirit and in truth. He's denying that there will be any focus of prayer.
Yeah, that there's some place that you have to point towards. He's rejecting that. And by the way, he says you will worship the Father. My Muslim friend, do you worship the Father? Because Allah says he's a father to no one. Allah says he is a father to no one.
And you can't call him a father. Why? Because Allah punishes his servants, and apparently fathers don't do that. The logic is that because Allah punishes people for their sins, he can't be a father because fathers don't punish their children. I just want to point out how stupid this book is, because that's the argument. That's the argument.
Yeah. So guys, he's trying to prove Muhammad and ends up completely destroying Islam. I am the Lord, that is my name. I will not yield my glory to another or my praise to idols. See, the former things have taken place.
Like a black rock?
Yeah. And new things I declare before they spring into being, I announce them to you. And here you get down to singing a new song. Muslims singing a new song? Of course not. Sing to the Lord a new song, his praise from the ends of the earth. Catch that, guys. Because notice it just said like to the Gentiles. And then so it's not just going to be about Israel. It's going to be about people around the world, right? Sing to the Lord a new song, his praise from the ends of the earth. You who go down to the sea. Oh, this means the prophet's coming out of the sea. It says sea there. This must mean that there's a prophet coming out of the sea and all that is in it. Oh my goodness, this means a prophet is going to be a mermaid, right? You islands. Oh, that means a prophet's going to come out of an island. Keep in mind, they only say this has something to do with a prophet arising from an area when they can somehow connect it to somewhere in Arabia. Then it's, you see, it's saying a prophet's going to arise here. What's it actually doing, right? You're in Israel. If you look west, what do you have? You have the sea, right? If you look east and south, what do you have? You have deserts and so on. What is he doing? He's saying, he's pointing in all directions. He's pointing in all directions saying, hey, you in all these places, you're all going to be singing praises to the Lord, right? So let's see it. You islands and all who live in them, let the wilderness and its towns raise their voices. Let the settlements where Kedar lives rejoice. Let the people of Selah sing for joy. Let them shout from the mountaintops. Where's that? That's Edom. So that's south.
Yep.
Kedar
So,
was east.
It's basically the Ganasids, and the Ganasids were what again? Oh yeah, they were Christian.
Yeah, so let the people of Selah sing for joy. Let them shout from the mountaintops. You see, and so this is what he actually was pointing to and saying, this is about Muhammad in Mecca and Medina. Are you stupid? Are you stupid?
He's only like, what, 800 miles away? 800, what's 800 miles between friends, right?
He's a long, 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 long way away. But anyway, as I pointed out, that's one of the, it keeps talking about this servant from Isaiah 42 and continues. Listen to me, you islands. Oh, you see, it says islands. This means a prophet's coming from an island. Listen to me, you islands. Hear this, you distant nations. What is this? He's proclaiming it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be everywhere. Hear this, you distant nations. Before I was born, the Lord called me. From my mother's womb, he has spoken my name. He made my mouth like a sharpened sword. In the shadow of his hand, he hid me. He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver. He said to me, you are my servant, Israel. Huh, that's interesting, right? There it says the servant is Israel. Right? Now let's keep reading. He said to me, you are my servant Israel, in whom I will display my splendor. But I said, I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for nothing at all. Yet what is due me is in the Lord's hand, and my reward is with my God. And now the Lord says, he who formed me in the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him and gather Israel to himself. Did you notice it says this is Israel, but then the job of this servant is to bring Jacob back to the Lord and gather Israel to the Lord. Now it sounds like it's a person who is representing Israel. He represents the nation. He brings Jacob back to himself and gathers Israel to himself. For I am honored in the eyes of the Lord, and my God has been my strength. So notice, it calls him Israel. It calls him Israel. But then it says he's bringing Israel back to the Lord. And what's it say? I'm honored in the eyes of the Lord, and my God has been my strength. He says, it is too small a thing for you to be my servant, to restore the tribes of Jacob and bring back those of Israel I have kept. I will also make you a light for the Gentiles, that my salvation may reach to the ends of the earth. He's talking about the same servant. Right? What's he doing? He's bringing Israel back. But not only that, he's going to be a light to the Gentile. Oh, that's Muhammad. Muhammad is the one who brought Israel. It's about the Messiah. You giant walking clown emoji. It continues in Isaiah 50. The sovereign Lord has given me a well-instructed tongue to know the word that sustains the weary. He wakens me morning by morning, wakens my ear to listen like one being instructed. The sovereign Lord has opened my ears. I have not been rebellious. I have not turned away. I offered my back to those who beat me, my cheeks to those who pulled out my beard. Why is this guy being beaten? Is this Muhammad? I did not hide my face from mocking and spitting. Who's this? That sound like Muhammad? Because the sovereign Lord helps me, I will not be disgraced. Therefore, I've set my face like flint, and I know I will not be put to shame. He who vindicates me is near. Who then will bring charges against me? Let us face each other. Who is my accuser? Let him confront me. It is the sovereign Lord who helps me. Who will condemn me? They will all wear out like a garment. The moss will eat them up. And who among you fears the Lord and obeys the word of his servant? Let the one who walks in the dark, who has no light, trust in the name of the Lord. And Muslims don't even know the name of the Lord. And it's Allah. And rely on their God. But now all you who light fires and provide yourselves with flaming torches, go, walk in the light of your fires and of the torches you have set ablaze. This is what you shall receive from my hand. You will lie down in torment. All right. And now we get to the fourth and final servant song. It's Isaiah 52:13 to 53:12. Just going to read it real quick. So, see, my servant will act wisely. Guys, this is the same servant from Isaiah 42. See, my servant will act wisely. He will be raised and lifted up and highly exalted. Just as there were many who were appalled at him, his appearance was so disfigured. Remember, he was being beaten in the previous servant song. His appearance was so disfigured beyond that of any human being, and his form marred beyond human likeness. So he will sprinkle many nations, and kings will shut their mouths because of him. For what they were not told, they will see, and what they have not heard, they will understand. There you go. Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him. Remember, he's all mangled. Nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised.
By the way, I found the root for Muhammad's name in the Bible. Guess what? It's in verse 2. When it says, there's nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. The HMD root has a different meaning in the Northwest Semitic languages, including Hebrew. It means desire, and that is that root. That is that root. He had nothing that in his appearance that we should desire him. So if you want to say that, we're looking for Muhammad's name, here, look, that we have nothing in him that we should have any association with him with Muhammad. Here you go. I'm using a Mohammedan approach to exegesis.
There we have that. And here, so if you wanted to make a prophecy about Muhammad, that would be where you'd go, buddy. So verse 3, he was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain, like one from whom people hide their faces. He was despised, and we held him in low esteem. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering. Yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. This is the servant you're saying is Muhammad? Huh? This is Muhammad, buddy? He was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. We all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. God laid the iniquity of us all on Muhammad. That's Muhammad. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent.
So we have this moron here who's like, you see, Jesus spoke during his trial. He spoke when he was ordered to speak. But again, is this Muhammad? Is this Muhammad? Because you're saying this is Muhammad.
Muhammad never opened his mouth, not once in his entire life. Durr. Oh, gosh,
he didn't open his mouth. He never defended himself at all. Is that what you want to argue? Do you want to argue that this is Muhammad? Either this is Muhammad or it has nothing to do with him. Is this Muhammad?
Yeah, we're gonna ask as soon as I finish reading this passage, and if he does not give a serious answer, by oppression and judgment he was taken away. Yet who of his generation protested? For he was cut off from the land of the living. Is that when Muhammad was poisoned? For the transgression of my people he was punished. Was Muhammad punished for the transgression of God's people? He was assigned a grave with the wicked, and really? Was Muhammad assigned a grave with the wicked? And with the rich in his death, though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. No deceit in Muhammad's mouth? Really? Yet it was the Lord's will to crush him and cause him to suffer, and though the Lord makes his life an offering for sin. Keep in mind, this is the one you said is Muhammad. Muhammad's life was an offering for sin. He will see his offspring and prolong his days, and the will of the Lord will prosper in his hand. After he has suffered, he will see the light of life and be satisfied. That's called a resurrection. By his knowledge, my righteous servant will justify many, and he will bear their iniquities. Muhammad bears our iniquities. Therefore, I will give him a portion among the great, and he will divide the spoils with the strong, because he poured out his life unto death and was numbered with the transgressors. For he bore the sin of many and made intercession for the transgressors. Now, I'm going to give you one opportunity. One opportunity. You get one. Go ahead and say that's Muhammad. Go ahead and say the servant in the 4 servant songs in Isaiah is Muhammad. Just go ahead. Say it. Where you at?
He's been awfully quiet since we have been making fun of him. I told him that he had to stop copy pasting. He had to respond to us, and then he
suddenly forgets how to respond. Oh, boy, I only know
how to
do it. I only know how to cut and paste.
Jesus spoke. Jesus spoke.
You see, that can't be Jesus.
So was Muhammad a sin offering? Is this Muhammad? Is Muhammad a sin offering?
Guys, I'm being nice. I mean, he's been spamming stupid stuff from an idiot artitle the entire time, and people are saying,
he's been doing it for days.
Yeah. And people are saying, go ahead and block him. He's just trying to distract with stupid nonsense. He lacks the ability to think, and he just cuts and pastes, and he's never read the passages. All he does is his stupid Dawa sites.
And I want
which are like the most deceptive. It's the most deceptive, idiotic nonsense on the
yes.
planet, and they'll just mindlessly trust it. Just like they would mindlessly trust a woman who says, "Ah, yeah, I was pregnant for 4.5 years," and they'll go, "Okay, I'll trust you just like I trust this Dawa guy." Where are you, man? Where you at?
Yeah.
People asking where you're at. Respond to this. All you have to say is that's Muhammad. Say yeah with a straight face. That's talking about Muhammad. Or apologize and say, okay, I apologize. I believe some idiotic nonsense from the Dawa script. I'm so incredibly, insanely gullible that I believe anything they say, even though anyone who just opens it up and reads the passage will see how stupid their arguments are. But I don't have that basic level of common sense and concern to be accurate about the things of God. And therefore, I apologize. I take back my stupid, idiotic argument. That's all you have to say. Or say it's Muhammad. Pick one. Not going to wait all day, dude. Notice, if he's not mindlessly cutting and pasting stuff from stupid articles, he can't even think. He can't even
No.
think enough.
And
He can't formulate a post in the chat. He can't do it. He's incapable. That's what Dawa does to your brain.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You are relying on people who lie to you in such an obvious way. Such an obvious way.
All right. Guess we can continue. Since our friend mysteriously went missing as soon as we asked him to explain anything.
And yes, the there is no deceit in his mouth is as Steve or Hussein al-Mashni said, is in fact derived from the same root as Makr. So Christ does not have Makr, whereas Muhammad, that's one of his names. Or Muhammad. Allah, that's one of his names. So, yeah.
Take a couple of these real quick. With Sydney gay and lesbian Mardi Gras decorations in every workplace full of fasting Muslim migrant workers, I have an idea. Put Pride Month on a lunar calendar so it can coincide with Ramadan every year. Hey, you should pitch that to the Pride groups. They're the ones who really think Islam is on their side. So you can just say, hey, you can form an even closer alliance with the Muslims of the world. Just have your Pride Month line up with Ramadan. Does his mother's profession indicate that Muhammad was perpetually covered in semen even pre-birth? You get that?
I got that.
So
Fortunately.
He was covered in semen later in life, and we can suspect that he was covered in semen earlier in life. I mean, even before he was born. Who's the jizya collector? Jake Momo Mom. For context, the gay and lesbian Mardi Gras and Lakemba Ramadan night markets are the second and third most attended festivals in Sydney, with 2 million plus attendees. Interesting. And then Aussie Abe says, I'll send a link. Australian Dawa teams are 10 years behind the U.S. Think Quran preservation scientific miracles. Oh, yeah. Huh. That's interesting to know if they're still, there's only one Quran with not one letter of difference between any two in the world. When I want to laugh, I watch Muslims in your comments. Yeah, it's good. I would love to see Issa's objection to this topic. After Ramadan, Issa might be like, "Ooh, this is too much for me, man." After Ramadan, I feel like I was 8 years pregnant. That's funny. That's how they feel during Ramadan. So his lineage is as plagiarized as his revelations. Yes, that would be the takeaway. It really looks like Muhammad's mom was a regular employee at the Arab version of Hunts Point.
Well, the fact that that she was not supported by Abdullah, that he spent 3 nights with her, and apparently, like, there's no other evidence that she was ever moved to another house. There's no other indication of this. Those 3 nights with her, the stories really need to make her get pregnant in those 3 nights. Why is there such an emphasis on getting her pregnant in that time? Well, that would be the case if he did not have that many other interactions with her. Why would he not? Because the contract might have been over at that point. There's no evidence that there's a tradition that Muhammad somehow inherited barakah from his mother, but it was actually through his father in some way. But I think that that's an excuse because he didn't have an inheritance from his father. Some of them, he famously had nothing. He had nothing when he married Khadijah. He had to borrow livestock. He did not inherit from his father. There are some hadith that try to cover this embarrassment, like, he totally inherited some stuff, but then why doesn't he have any possessions whatsoever? Years later, when he goes to marry, why is he completely broke? Why does he have nothing? It's because he didn't inherit, because all of the inheritance was given up long before he was born. So she didn't have a regular marriage. There's no evidence of a traditional mahr marriage with Amina, and there is evidence against it even in that lifetime.
Look at this dope. He finally responded. Isaiah 53:5 says he was wounded for our transgressions. Wounded, not killed. There is no mention or inference of crucifixion anywhere in Isaiah. Are you insanely stupid?
I just want to point out how stupid this person is, because
stupid.
What does it say? This goes back to Genesis. Everyone should be laughing at this numbskull who doesn't know his Bible at all. What does a snake do? He wounds or bruises the heel, and the snake's head is crushed. The crucifixion of Christ is called a wounding, after which he is buried. He is buried because he is dead in the body, but he is only wounded. Why? Because this bodily death transforms into the redemption of the entire world. It is a victory. It is a victory over death itself. It is the crushing of the head of the serpent. So when you come in here and say things like this, you just look dumber and dumber and dumber, because you don't understand why wounded is important, why that word matters, what its significance is. And you're avoiding talking about Muhammad. Mm-hmm. Is this Muhammad? Was he wounded for transgressions? Was he punished for the sins of the people? Was Muhammad punished for sins? That's the question. That's what we're asking. And you won't answer it.
And this dummy, listen to this. But he was pierced for our offenses. Oh, no, nothing about crucifixion. Nothing about crucifixion. Okay, let's and nothing about death. Not killed. Okay. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth, like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that is silent before its shearers. So he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off from the land of the living for the wrongdoing of my people, and his grave was assigned with the wicked. And yet he was who was he crucified between?
Between the two robbers, between the two thieves.
Yet he was with a rich man in his death. Where was Jesus buried?
He was buried in the unused tomb of the Pharisee who paid for a tomb for him.
Joseph of Arimathea, the rich man. And it says he's a guilt offering and so on. Yeah, dude. All right. You've convinced me that you are... that was mainly to give you, like, the option.
A chance to think.
Yeah.
To realize that you've been lied to. But you're just running off to go, how can I prove this isn't about Jesus? Yeah. Was Muhammad...
pierced for our transgressions? Was he a guilt offering? Was he any of that stuff? Anyway, I went ahead and blocked him. This is and do you know what the delay was? You know what the delay was? Guess what the delay was? He was going around to stupid Dawa websites to find
yeah. He was definitely prove this isn't about Jesus. But you know what? He never said it was about Muhammad because he knew it wasn't. He knew it was not about Muhammad.
And that was his entire case. Do you see this? Isaiah 42 is about Muhammad. Gosh, Dawa's stupid, and it makes people stupid.
Well, what's really funny about that is that the specific thing of yelling in the streets is a trait ascribed to Muhammad in the Hadith. So you don't even have to get very far. It's like, oh, there's kind of fake stuff. There's not a spirit. Well, that was Jabril being sent down to him. But as soon as you go to any behavior of his own, that he didn't raise his voice in the streets. You have Muhammad screaming at people and his face turning red, both in the streets and in the mosque.
Yeah, we can
like
only
routinely. That was his demeanor, was of a red-faced screaming preacher.
yeah, we can only assume that our little Dawa pal there, who was commenting, that his parents were first cousins who were also terrible at interpreting scripture.
You have to get to that point through many generations of first cousin marriages. You have to be closer related than siblings to get to that point.
So Momo prostrated in the desert like his mother. It's all making sense. No genetic testing needed. Yeah, I thought about that connection too. Maybe that was in memory of. I guess a halal In-N-Out burger would just drop the burger and keep it quickie. Just in and out. Make a T-shirt between Joseph Smith and Muhammad. Compare and contrast them. The similarities are striking. Two perverts who in modern times would be living on Spawn Ranch. Oh yeah, we're gonna have a debate coming up. I think Mary versus Anthony on who's a more obvious false prophet, Muhammad or Joseph Smith.
And I'll take Joseph Smith just because I've done a good deal of research on him, and there's crazy stuff nobody's heard about him. You think I'm reading crazy stuff about Muhammad? I'll read crazy stuff about Joseph Smith too. So
we've got Keep Mary Coming. She's cool and to the point. We got based Ralph Cifaretto reference. I just finished Sopranos. David, where do you rank Sopranos as a show compared to other TV shows? Well, I've only seen a bunch of YouTube clips. But based on the YouTube clips, it's definitely like top 5 or something. Why are you guys so Islamophobic? Today is International Day to combat Islamophobia. Just let us worship Allah and her daughters in peace. Wait, is today the Islamophobia Day?
If it is, excellent.
I wish I'd have known, because I'd have. Worse than stupid, they are gross. He's one of those Trinitarian Muslims Junior spoke of. As far as the father. Would the pro-male bias against assault victims in that culture give a reason for women to suggest pregnancies can last years? Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially, I don't know what the penalty would have been before Muhammad, but after Muhammad, it would have been stoning. So you definitely had a reason to make the story.
Well, in this one, yeah. So, but they already believed it before, and it was because women didn't know who the real father was, first of all, and secondly, because all the inheritance was through male lines, you needed to assign your son to an appropriate male line so that he would get money and get the support of a family. So if you're sleeping with multiple men and you were in one of these pre-Islamic arrangements, then you could claim, oh, he's really this man's, and then you would get a divination. You'd have a magic practiced, and hopefully the magic ends up in your favor, and you're able to assign the son to the man you want to assign him to, and then you get supported as the mother of this child until the child's a certain age, and then whenever he inherits, he'll take care of you in your old age. So the idea that you need to have fathers for your children at the same time that women are running around sleeping with everybody all the time, like that's what created a lot of these things, these ideas that, well, it could be anyone I've slept with in the past 8 years, right?
Here we have Peaceful Exploder. Islam is number 1 in human rights, number 1 in IQ, number 1 in science, and our prophet was conceived by a witch. We are not pagans, we worship creation. We're not pagans, we worship creations like Blackstone. We just read in the voice of God logic. In Arabic, the word, this is from Hussein earlier. In Arabic, the word for deceit, when it says there was no deceit in his mouth, is makr. And so he's better than Allah. Before you do the Shahada, one must sacrifice 80 IQ points. We say things like that to be mean, but it is interesting. I mean, you had Daniel Hakikachu saying that he wants lots of first cousin marriage because it leads to lower IQ societies, and lower IQ societies are more likely to keep people in Islam. No, not joking. He said it. 4-year gestation. 4-year gestation, huh? So Mo's an alpine salamander. Many of us have only half courage as today's guest. And I want to hear that debate. What's Mary's channel?
It won't be on my channel. We'll probably cross post it across multiple channels, and it will be announced
That one,
when
that
it
one, since
is.
I'm not participating and I have no dog in the fight, I'd be happy to host it. But
Oh, awesome! That would be
yeah,
great.
yeah, that would be an easy way. So we don't even have to like bother like James from Modern Day Debate or anything. We could just do it. We
Yeah.
could do that in
Well,
house.
we'll probably host it on here, and we'll do the debate in person over the summer. So it will be things that you don't have.
Mhm.
So, look, he's back. Oh, look, he is gone.
Wait, oopsie. Did that go the way you hoped it would?
Yeah, I know, right?
All right. back to
Muhammad's mom.
back
So,
to Muhammad's mom, and we know what's been said about her.
She was a hooah.
what's really funny is that you popped up that Twitter thread, and one of the guys on that thread used as an argument that maybe it's miraculous. A statement that actually points to the fact that she wasn't even pregnant for as long as she said she was. And again, no one credited this as being miraculous at this time. She did not have a miraculous pregnancy. Women could just be pregnant bunches and bunches of years, according to the Arabs, because their women slept around a lot. And again, what he quoted was, I did not feel as if I was pregnant, and I experienced no heaviness as other women do, except that my period stopped, and then I had a vision, and the vision's like, did you know, when I was in a state between sleep and wakefulness, by the way, we're still getting our sleep paralysis demons coming and visiting people. All of Islam comes from sleep paralysis demons. And a visitor came in and said, do you know that you're pregnant? I felt as if I answered no. And again, sleep paralysis demon, you can't actually talk. And then he said, you're burying the chief of the nation as prophet. That was on a Monday. And she's like, I was allowed a respite of heaviness until the time of delivery approached. And then I had all of these agony, birth pangs and everything else, and had a painful delivery, but for a long time before then, I didn't feel any heaviness. What is this an excuse for? She didn't look pregnant for years and years. She's like, oh, well, this was a dispensation given to me, that I felt no heaviness. My stomach didn't get big. No one thought I was pregnant. I didn't look pregnant. But I'm telling you, my periods had stopped. Nobody knew this, but my periods totally had stopped. So
Just wanted to point out, Andrew Martin here pointed out, Mary Harb often hangs out at Reason Answers. So, yeah, Mary does have a channel. Sometimes she posts there, but you would see her going into lots of detailed arguments and so on, usually over at Reasoned Answers. So, follow that.
Right. So, this whole hadith that is explaining why she's walking around for years with no apparent signs of pregnancy. They're like, oh, that shows that this is an excuse for why no one thought she was pregnant for years and years. So, one very, very, very important point that points to Muhammad's supposed family not believing that he is from them is that Abdul Muttalib never supported Amina, never gave her money. So, most of Islamic family law is simply traditional pagan Arab custom with some new restrictions thrown on that are mainly placed on women that limits their ability to make choices for themselves. But among the traditional customs that were kept was a pagan view of marriage as being fundamentally transactional, as I explained before. It's a purchase of services or the use of a human body in exchange for money. Women are given tangible compensation for the use of their bodies for sex, gestation, and breastfeeding. While they have a biological bond with their child that was understood and even informed views on incest more heavily than the husband's contribution in early Semitic societies and also in this early Arab society, and even in Arab society now, the reason why breastfeeding causes you to be related to one another is that Muhammad thought that the biological connection to a child from a mother was because the baby's body was built out of a fluid that could create female seminal fluid that really came from blood and could be also turned into milk. so that when you feed a baby, you are giving them milk and part of your biological identity, and they become actually related to you. It is an actual relation, which again points to the falsity of Islam. It's based on a false view of human reproduction, human gestation, all of these things. So, but they have no lineage level bond between a mother and their child. They're biological but not lineal. A mother gestates, breastfeeds, and cares for children for the father's lineage, and thus she is entitled for compensation because she is rendering a service to a lineage. Now, normally, this was and even is in some places handled through an existing marriage. A woman's maintenance is increased to compensate her for the labor that's beyond the standing payment amount that's just made for sexual access. So you have an expectation of being supported more if you are breastfeeding a child. In the cases where the marriage has already been ruptured through divorce or death, the woman is still due compensation from her husband or his family, and she's not required to perform any activities for a born child without this compensation. So, if her husband's divorced her, it's his responsibility to give this compensation. If it is the family, if he's dead, then the family is supposed to compensate her and supposed to provide for the providing of the child. And if the woman's willing to breastfeed and the representative of the male lineage is willing to have her breastfeed, then the woman would normatively be compensated. It would be normal to pay the actual biological mother, especially if you want to make sure that the child's well treated. You're going to trust the biological mother more than some random woman you're just paying to feed this child. There is no evidence that Amina was provided any of this support, and there's huge amounts of evidence that she was not. First of all, Abdul Muttalib never paid for Amina to have a midwife. So what did she do? She gave birth without any reported midwife. And in fact, all of the stories about Muhammad being born, there is no midwife present. And how women gave birth in this society is that they would tie a rope across the house or the courtyard and dig a hole in the floor. They had dirt floors. They would dig a hole in the floor, and then all the things that happen while you labor, whether or not it's the amniotic fluid or later on the afterbirth or whatever else that happens while you're giving birth, it falls in the hole, and in the end, you just bury that stuff in there. If you have a miscarriage or a stillbirth, the child was normatively buried in the hole. When they talk about burying of baby girls alive, that was because women who did not have a girl associated with a lineage and didn't think that there would be a man who would pay for this girl, say she was a prostitute and she could easily assign her, or a traveler wife, and she could easily assign her sons to men because men want sons, but daughters, they would be more inclined to say, no, that's not my child. So when they gave birth, they would place the living daughter into the hole with the afterbirth and just cover her over and pretend she was stillborn, or act, not necessarily pretend she was stillborn, but treat her in the same way that you would a stillborn baby who was buried in the household, within this house. And this still happens, by the way, in Sudan. This is still how women give birth. They give birth hanging onto a rope over a hole. That's how they give birth. This is the traditional way of the Arabs. And all of the stories about Amina have her giving birth and then Muhammad falling out of her, because remember, she's squatting, and then he supposedly miraculously lands on his hands and knees and bows to Allah or something like that, rather than landing on his head like he almost certainly did, which explains a lot, right? So she has no midwife. There's no midwife to testify of the light that shone from her vagina and illuminated Basra. Amina's the only one who sees this. Why? Because no one is with her. Why doesn't she have a midwife? Because Abdul Muttalib refused to pay for one. Why didn't she pay for one herself? She's being stubborn. She's like, no, this is your child. I am due this. If she paid for a midwife, then there would be a level of admission that, well, you paid for that midwife. You must not really, really believe that that is his son and it could be used against her. So she's maintaining her status as this is definitely should be assigned to your lineage. Yeah, it's been more than 4.5 years. It's been more than 4.5 years, but you know what? This lineage is your lineage. It's your child. You should be giving me a midwife. And in fact, this midwifelessness of Amina, Muhammad took that and he applied it to Mary because he always wanted to make other prophets' backgrounds resemble his own. So he stripped the story of the midwife and all of the that exists in all of the apocryphal stories in which Mary gives birth. There's always a midwife, and the midwife's testimony and that she sees light and hanging over the baby, not coming out of anyone's vagina. That is a special Islamic thing. Islam didn't have a concept of the glory of the Lord. So they're like, oh, there's a light with the baby. Where's the light coming from? Must be coming from the vagina, using Muslim logic. But they took elements of the story, but then he stripped away the midwife because he didn't want her to have a midwife because what? His mom didn't have a midwife.
And
your
the
dad.
like Muhammad.
Yep.
It's just mysterious. Joseph just mysteriously is absent.
Gone. He's gone. He just gets stripped out. Why? Because Muhammad didn't have a dad. So no midwife, no dad. Agonizing birth as his mother his mother had no pain until it came time to give birth, and then she had an agonizing birth. So like these are all elements that he's copying from his own mother, which because these exist in the Quran, it backs up these ahadith as being authentic narrations of her giving birth without a midwife. And the only reason she would have possibly given birth without a midwife is if the father's family refused to pay one. It was their responsibility. They flatly refused. No, I will not pay for a midwife. So if this midwife is flatly refused, what do you think will happen whenever it comes time to pay Amina to nurse the child? Think they're going to pay her? So Amina is stubborn, remember? She gave birth without a midwife. Is she going to feed this baby without payment, or will she let it die? She's going to let it die. She looks at Muhammad, newly born, freshly out of her womb, crying, and she's like, you better come and pay me for this baby or I'm going to let it die. And Abdul Muttalib does not send anyone. Abu Lahab forces his hand. Abu Lahab is a brother of Abdullah who for some insane reason believes this woman's story or wants to believe her story because he actually is like the most decent person in the Islamic sources. He
Not
pays
according to the
ransom for
Quran.
people. I know, right? He pays ransom for somebody who's kidnapped when other people won't. He saves Muhammad from death. He is willing to marry his children to Muhammad and affirms his place in the family that no one else will marry their daughters to or marry their sons to his daughters. They're like, yeah, you don't rate, but he will because he's this good, generous person. And so he sends his slave to go and who's lactating to go and feed Muhammad and save him from death. And this forces Abdul Muttalib's hand. I have a son who is recognizing this child as his brother's son. All right, we got to do something. What does he do? Does he go, all right, so it's my son? No. He goes to do the paternal divination. So this is very important. Pagan paternity divination was a major role of Hubal's idol, and the divination arrows associated with him. You would go to the idol and throw the divination arrows. And two other times, this is going to be the third time that our buddy Abdul Muttalib in all of these narrations is going to stand in front of Hubal and talk to Allah. And he makes a promise to Allah, so he goes to Hubal to fulfill his promise because, they're the same God. They are the same God. So the first time was when he's digging stuff up and he found some treasures underground and he's like, let us go to Allah, that is the idol of Hubal, and throw some of these divination, pagan practice arrows and decide whether or not these things should belong to me or to the Quraysh. And they do that and various things happen. And then there's a story where he's supposedly promised to sacrifice one of his sons. And he goes to the divination arrows of Hubal in front of Allah to do this pagan divination to find out whether or not he should sacrifice one of his sons and which one he should sacrifice. Even though, like, that is an obviously invented story for a whole bunch of reasons, it lets us know what Hubal was known for. He was known for pagan divination, but more than that, he is especially known for paternity divinations. So in Ibn Ishaq, we find if they wanted to circumcise a boy or make a marriage or bury a body or doubted someone's genealogy, they took him to Hubal with 100 dirhams and slaughtered a camel and gave them to the man who cast the lots. Then they brought near the man, and then here's the thing. So you're given one, circumcise, marriage, bury a body, doubted genealogy, 4 things. But when it comes time to describe the question that's asked, guess which question actually gets laid out for you? It's the genealogy question. So then they brought near the man with whom they were concerned, saying, "Oh, our God, is this A, the son of B, with whom we intend to do so-and-so? So show us the right course concerning him." And then they would say to the man who cast the arrows, "Cast!" And if the arrows came out of you, that he was a true member of their tribe. If he came out not of you, then he was an ally. If he came out Musak, he had no blood relation to them and was not an ally. So you have paternity divination was a major role of this idol. So then you have something that says Abdul Muttalib took the boy to the Kaaba, went inside of it and stood in front of Hubal, and then they kind of go, "Oh, he was just thanking Allah. He was just standing in front of Hubal and thanking Allah." Every other time he's saying it from Hubal, what is he doing? Casting divination arrows. So again, this is one of these stories that needs to patch up what really happened, which is he cast the paternity divination arrows, and he's like, "Dang it, I'm stuck with this kid, but I still don't think he's mine."
One quick question real quick.
Yeah.
Because someone asked, from what is Mary reading when you're reading something? Is this your notes, or are you actually looking at your articles?
I'm looking at my articles. So I'm looking at my articles.
So the stuff you're citing is in the articles that are linked in the description. Okay. So yeah.
So if you miss a source, it's laid out in the articles.
Yeah. So Rick Martel, guys, the information she is quoting right now is in her articles that she recently put together. The link is in the description, so you have all of the sources that she's appealing to.
Right. So now Abdul Muttalib is stuck with him. And what does he do? Does he pay Amina then? No, he doesn't. He still doesn't pay Amina.
Well, there's a cheaper option.
Yeah, there's a cheaper option. There's also an option where you don't reward the woman that you believe is lying. So you don't reward the woman that you believe is lying. Instead, you go and find the cheapest Bedouin woman who's willing to breastfeed him. And if she takes him out in the desert, maybe she won't bring him back. And that will be easier for everyone. So, but before he was sent out, he was named. And this is a really important event for a very different reason than what people think. People think that the name Muhammad is so important because it's this illustrious name. But we have a bunch of examples in pre-Islamic writings of dudes with the same letters, the same consonants of Muhammad, that basically meant the same thing in several related languages, both in Arabic and in Old South Arabian. This was a name that was in circulation at that time, because whenever people went, well, if it's a special name that's supposed to be just his, why is it that there were other people running around with this name? Why does it seem to be an ordinary name? And the excuse that was made is, oh, well, the Arabs didn't used to use it, which is untrue. They used it hundreds of years before. But they found out from the Jews and Christians that it was going to be the name of the prophet. So then Arabs all started giving their kids this name. And there were 7 people who gave their kid this name, hoping that he would be the prophet that we're expecting, which, of course, is total nonsense. But it's to explain away the fact that it's an ordinary name. But why does his name need explanation at all? Well, we find it in the fact that Abdul Muttalib refused to give Muhammad a family name. He gave him a name that was in circulation, Arabs were using it, but you know who wasn't using it? The Quraysh. People in Medina were using it. People in surrounding areas are using it. But the Quraysh were not using this as a name. And this is significant because he had a son named Qutham who had died. And this really was a family name. How do we know? Because Al-Abbas named one of his sons later on, named him Qutham after this family name that was in circulation. This was going to be Muhammad's name, but Abdul Muttalib wouldn't let him have this name. And one version says that Abdul Muttalib got a vision from an angel that told him to name the child Muhammad instead. And then the other one is, but Amina, she got a vision from Allah. An angel came and told her to give him the name Muhammad instead. So this is an excuse as to why he was giving this non-family name. But the concern of the Quraysh people are shown in when they address him, saying, "Oh Abdul, oh father of Al-Harith, why do you propose to keep a name that was certainly not kept by your forefathers or any of your family members?" So their concern is not, why are you giving him a special name? No, it's why aren't you giving him this family name, any family name? Why are you giving him a name of an outsider? And then his answer is just an excuse. Oh, I'm giving him a really noble name. It's fine. It's fine. But what it shows is his continued doubt that Muhammad belonged to them. He's like, I'm not going to give you a family name. I'm not going to give a family name to this child I don't believe is in the family. So, and this has caused a great amount of confusion because people don't realize, there were plenty of people running around named Muhammad at this time. He's not the only one. He's not special for this name. The concern, the preoccupation with his name was over the fact that it wasn't a family name. It didn't belong to the Quraysh. So we then have him receiving a wet nurse. And in all the narrations, his wet nurse, Halima, she is a last pick wet nurse. No one else wanted her. She wasn't able to get another baby. Muhammad is a last pick baby. Halima is a last pick wet nurse. And yet you have him given to her. In fact, in some of these narrations, Halima even doubts that she'll be able to, they're starving to death. She doesn't have enough milk for even her own son to really do well. And yet she's asking for a baby anyway. What will happen to a baby if she doesn't have enough milk already?
Not
gonna die. Yeah, it's not gonna be good. And yet here she is. And for those who don't know, traditionally, wet nurses were checked up on by other women to make sure that they had a good milk supply before they were chosen. So if this woman who had a poor milk supply at this time is being chosen to be a wet nurse, it's because they don't want the baby to live. They don't want the baby to live. And it shows her skepticism about being paid well for this baby. How much money am I going to take? Well, I better take him anyway because I can't get anyone better. And Abdul Muttalib, after having determined that, after having named him, gone, okay, fine. The pagan divination arrows fell, and it says that this is my son. Again, why is Muhammad belonging to this family? Because of this pagan divination magic thing. Fine, I will fulfill my obligation in the most minimal way possible by giving him a name, but not a family name. By paying for his nursing from this woman who doesn't seem to have a very good milk supply and isn't his mother. But I'm not giving a red cent to that woman who birthed him. Not a red cent. So normally in Islamic law, let's see how many people in the chat know, how long in Islamic law is breastfeeding? How long does it last? So they're going to be a little bit behind us, but the evidence of Muhammad's foster mother is that she was continued paid money to take care of Muhammad after weaning. when there was no reason for him to be with her. There's no reason in the world for him not to be with his own family. She wasn't providing anything that any woman couldn't provide. But he's being kept out of Mecca, out in the desert, until this incident happens that convinces her that he is possessed. And she's like, I don't want to have anything to do with this child anymore when he's about 4. So 2 years is correct. Good. So the folks who had 2 years, you guys have been paying attention to your Sharia and to your Quran. But after the 2 years, she continued to keep him and be paid for 2 years more until she went, this kid is possessed. I don't have anything to do with him, and dumps him on Amina. Even at this point, there's no evidence that Abdul Muttalib actually paid to support her. And in fact, she was coming from Medina back to Mecca when she dies on the way. And then Muhammad is transported back the rest of the way by her slave, Abu Kabsha, who is a man, and Barakah, who is a slave girl, back the rest of the way and dumped on his father, or his supposed grandfather. So here, you have this very much unwanted child, but then you have this weird question: what the heck is Amina doing what's she doing in Medina? Why is she out there? What's she doing? She's a Meccan. She has no Medinan relatives, and the excuse is that she just decided to take Muhammad on a casual visit, which would be very hard and expensive at that time and dangerous, to visit the uncles of his great grandmother. This is not very plausible. What is much more plausible is that Amina wanted to go to where there were better customers for her profession, which be in Medina, which was on the trade route, which had lots of people coming through it, rather than having to rely on a low turnover local populace and not men who are thirsty, shall we say, from being out in the desert away from as much easy access to women for a while. So she had better economic opportunities in Medina. This also fits better with Muhammad being seen in some way as being attached to Medina by people in Medina. If he had spent 2 years there as a child, people could go, yeah, I remember that kid. I remember his mom. His mom was here for this long, and he was here for this portion of it. Yeah, we remember him. Versus he was here for like a couple of weeks. Nobody would remember him. If he was there for years, they would. So all of this points to her, again, having a profession in which she was available for a certain consideration to some subset of men. There's also the fact that Muhammad's nickname, as I mentioned before, was Ibn Abu Kabsha. He was being called the son of Abu Kabsha, his mother's slave. So people are going, you're not really Abdullah's child. Rather than saying that you're the son of some other random guy, we're going to make you the son of her slave. We're going to reduce her status to that point. The very fact that she owned both a male slave and a female slave points to this being her profession as well, because she had no property. She had no animals. Muhammad inherited nothing from her but the slaves. Why? Because her income was from selling herself, and she had a man who was able to deal with unruly patrons and conduct business for her as needed, even though she had no property either in acreage in Medina or animals or anything else. She didn't own anything. She still needed a man to conduct business because she had income from her red light district profession, and she had a serving girl to serve her and make her life comfortable. And so that points to this as well. There is a potential that there is also some things pointing to the possibility that this was, you might ask, okay, fine, she's supposed to be this floozy, this prostitute. Where's her other kids? If she had one, wouldn't she have had more? Well, Muhammad was her first. She didn't have any in that interim there, so she wasn't a terribly fertile woman. Maybe because of the herbs that she was taking to try to prevent this, maybe for other reasons, so we wouldn't expect very many more. But there's also the fact that there is testimony, supposedly from her. Other people seem to think that she bore other children. because there is a hadith that says that I had other pregnancies, but of all my lambs, meaning born children, Muhammad was the heaviest. So he was the heaviest at birth. Where are these other kids?
Well, 4.5 years. I mean, it's got to be pretty heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, 4.5 years, heavy, super heavy, right? So where are these other kids? And if they had been sons, then she would have most likely done the reassignment ritual again, where she's like, you contracted with me, this is your son, and hope for a better outcome. If they had been daughters, people aren't as willing to accept daughters. As much resistance as she got for a son, she would have gotten like a wall for a daughter. So she may have chosen to bury those daughters. And Muhammad may have found out later that, wait, no, when my mommy's tummy got really big and then it got small again, it's because she had a baby girl and I never saw a baby because she probably buried it. She could have found that out later, given her testimony that she had born other children, and yet we have no evidence of living children. And that would explain Muhammad's preoccupation with female infanticide, because there is no evidence that female infanticide was practiced at all by the nobility within Mecca. It was forbidden by their particular sect. They were trying to imitate the monotheists who hated killing children. And so they're like, we're going to be like you and we're going to stop having female infanticide. But also when you look at the sheer ratio of daughters to sons, you expect daughters to be less reported in historical sources. And yet you have some of Muhammad's enemies who had like 5 daughters and 2 sons. And that tells you that they were not practicing female infanticide. So what's Muhammad's hang up on this thing that didn't seem to be practiced within any of the elites? Well, what if his mother had done it because she wasn't an elite, because she was on the outskirts, because she was in the fringes of society, and that made economic sense to her, whereas a woman in a stable relationship at that time would not have done that to a daughter. And that would explain his very strong preoccupation early in his ministry, his career, let's say. There's no serving in it whatsoever. So early in his career, where he really wanted to condemn female infanticide, why is he wanting to condemn it? Well, maybe it's because his mom did it, even though it was already forbidden by the custom of his people. There are a few other things. So again, his enemies back in Mecca, what do they call him? Ibn Abu Kabsha. They're saying, the slave is your father. Their go-to insult for him was about his illegitimacy. Their go-to insult. And that was not true of other people. They didn't say that about Ali. They didn't say that about tons of other people. As far as we know, except for insulting the nature of your mother. Your mother was a black woman or something like that. That was considered a terrible insult. And Muhammad's like, quit saying that people's parents are black, even if it's true, because that humiliates them. That's an insult. You shouldn't do that. Being black is bad, so don't say that insulting thing about those black parents. But you would insult things of people's parents that were attributable to them. Thus, within Meccan society, it was attributable to Muhammad that he was illegitimate, that was something that would stick. You also have Abu Talib. So Muhammad had been given over to Abu Talib, one of his other uncles, one of Abdul al-Muttalib's other sons was named Abu Talib. Now, when Abdul al-Muttalib died, you have the situation where Abu Lahab, who had been the one who had saved him, who cared about him, who would later marry his daughters to his sons to his daughters, and his daughter to his adopted son, who had been a slave because he cared that much about this boy Muhammad. And then you have Abu Talib, who was a known pederast. Guess which one Abdul Muttalib chose for Muhammad? He chose a pederast. He's like, here, pederast, you have him. Well, I know that you really want him. You think he's a pretty boy. So he gives him to this pederast, and when he grows up, Abu Talib refuses to give Muhammad his daughter's hand in marriage. And he says, no, a noble is for a noble. My daughter, a noble, should be married to a noble. What does that say about Muhammad? Not a noble. And then we also have Hamza. Whenever he got super drunk, he got drunk out of his mind. He started chopping up camels with a sword, and Muhammad went over to fuss at him. And when he did, he rears around. He's all drunk. He's like, "I know you. You were just a slave in my father's house." If he is so petted, if he is so treasured, why would Hamza, in drunken truth, be saying that he was viewed as a slave in his father's house? And again, if he was viewed as a slave in his father's house, in Abdul-Muttalib's house, this again puts a very dark spin on the narration that Abdul-Muttalib was known to order Muhammad to sit on a bed next to him while he petted him. So he orders this boy that he does not believe is his grandson to sit next to him and would pet and fondle the boy, and then later he hands him over to a known pederast. So all of these things together, like if you are not a Muslim, the narrations about the specific ages, you could set those aside as just being inaccurate, that they, it'd been a while, people are not, didn't really, they're trying to make things up. But all of these other independent points of data, each one of them is its own specific independent testimony that points to the fact that Muhammad was illegitimate. And again, this is important for two big reasons. One, it built into the psychology of who Muhammad was and how desperate he was to prove himself as being a true member of the Quraysh. And remember, Allah chose the best of the Hashemites. I'm not only a Hashemite, I'm the best of them. So all of this preoccupation, all this insecurity, all this desperation to be important, to be recognized when it was denied to him, when he was considered an orphan, probably illegitimate, the subject of sexual attentions of men, which was degrading in that society, all of this, he has all of this on him, and he wants to be instead seen as the important one, the ruler, the one who is wise, the one who is favored. And then second, all of this disqualifies Islam as a legitimate religion. There are three reasons that saying that any of the women, that the fact that Islam recognizes women as having multi-year pregnancies at all disqualifies Islam, and two that are specific to Muhammad that disqualifies him as a prophet if he personally was illegitimate.
All right, so that's the case there?
That is the case.
All right, because we're gonna do a poll, not in the Warner or Zoot or any of that sense. We have a poll here. Start a poll. Was Muhammad's mother a prostitute?
So, and this is, yeah.
All right, here we go.
So it says,
Now
breathe, Mary, breathe.
Now we're going to find out.
So again, like it initially seems like, and the first time I heard that he was born 4 years after, I was like, oh, somebody just probably made an oopsie. And then I started reading all these. Why is Abdul-Muttalib bringing him in front of the paternity divination idol? Why is he doing that? What's he doing in front of a paternity divination idol with a baby? He has no reason to be there. So, and the fact that she gave birth alone, that's unheard. You don't give birth alone in this society. Like, there are few societies in which people give birth alone. Yeah, why is David so quiet today? I'm trying to pause it now and again, and he's just nodding, so I keep going.
No, I always know Mary has a lot of content. If I have someone on and I know they're gonna have like 15 minutes worth of content, I'll just jump in as much as I want and talk as much as I want. With Mary, I know she's coming with like an hour at least of content, so I don't want to keep interrupting and so on. Well, we're at 97% so far. People concluding that Muhammad's mother was a prostitute. Any of you who disagree, you better vote now, because I'm gonna screenshot that and put that on X afterwards.
And again, like they would not have termed it necessarily prostitution, because this whole being a marriage thing where you could be married to 60 guys, that was being a marriage. That was a total marriage there. But in terms of any sane definition, she had an illegitimate child. Muhammad was illegitimate. People knew he was illegitimate. He relied upon these multi-year pregnancies, but even then people didn't really believe that he was from that society. And it may have been if his grandfather had truly believed it, more people may have accepted it. But as it was, they're like, your go-to insult is usually something that can stick. You don't do go-to insults that can't stick. And the go-to insult is that he was not from Abdullah.
Zane says, "Who's the 3%? Show yourself." All right. Well, so we're at 297 votes. So we'll let those. We'll take a couple comments and the rest of the super chats while everyone continues voting. Keep in mind, guys, about 1,600, almost 1,600 people watching right now. 300 of you have voted.
Jump in and vote. Now is your chance. Jump in and vote.
This is for posterity's sake, everyone.
Yes.
This is for posterity's sake. Take a couple of questions here. This is from Nikolai earlier, who was whining. 6th time asking. Hey guys, I just started watching your channel. I follow Theravada Buddhism. What are your thoughts on it? I have no thoughts on it because I don't care about it.
And my thoughts on it is that you don't have a sentient God. You have nothing responsible for creation. It's already a non-starter from the most basic philosophical sense. And it's a desperately sad and depraved religion, because what is the cause of suffering? What's suffering? It is caring at all, essentially. So love is no more good or wicked than hate. That intense feeling that you feel for your child is not, it is a cause of suffering. It is no better or worse than murdering your child and having a murderous rage for your child, because the only thing that it looks forward to is the extinguishment of suffering. And then what replaces it is what? Oh, well, it's framed as good, but it is not good in any sort of sense, except that it is the absence of suffering. So it's a very, very sad, depraved religion that does not have, what do you have in Christianity? Why did God create? He created out of love. He is love. What we are made for is to seek after the good and the love and to exist in love. So it has entirely this nihilistic absence of pain as the only thing that can possibly be called good. So it's very dark and very sad and very terrible.
Yeah, when I mentioned I don't really care, that was not that wasn't even a comment on the Buddhism. I normally focus on whoever's attacking most. And that's usually someone to do with Islam or like the aggressive type atheists, like the new atheists and so on. So I tend to focus on people who are running their mouths the most and so on. And that's usually not Buddhists. So you want me to pay more attention, then, start telling me you're going to violently subjugate the world and stuff. And then Nikolai
there have been a few violently subjugating Buddhist monarchs, but not as many. Mm-hmm. So
Nikolai also said, I want to see you guys debate with Smile to Jinnah. He is a Muslim. Also, he has a channel. You act like that depends on us. That coward would never debate anyone on our side. It's never going to happen. Yeah, so
he just makes up the dumbest things.
Yeah, we do debates regularly. We've got DebateCon coming up. We got DebateCon coming up, and then we have an apologetics conference with debates coming either right before that or right after it and stuff. We do tons of debates. You're not going to see that guy ever debating us. So yeah, you can keep wanting, but not going to happen. Dina said, "Are you still moving?" Yes, but I'd rather not share any details, considering. But you'll know when everything is settled, because you'll see a different background behind me.
He's moving to North Dakota, guys.
And then Nikolai says, this is literally exhausting to hear about this every single effing time. Well, you can't mean the content because we've never talked about that on this channel. This is all new content for this channel. So what do you mean? He means
Islam. Is that a
Islam.
new content, or do you mean about Buddhism? And someone
No,
pointed out,
no, because that was earlier.
That was earlier.
That was before. Yeah.
Yeah, it
So,
is exhausting.
Yeah,
I mean, Islam is exhausting.
I think he means talking about Islam all the time.
Yeah.
He wants us to talk about
exhausting.
Buddhism. No. Find another channel. Dude, don't go to someone's channel where they focus on certain topics and then, I want you to talk about this other stuff, not this stuff. I want you to talk. Why don't you go to another channel, dude? Go, if you're interested in other topics, go to a different channel that covers those topics. Don't go to a channel where they're already talking about topics and try to, no, you need to talk about this other stuff that I'm interested in. No one cares. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but you're the one coming on here. This is tiring. You guys keep talking about this. I want you to talk about this other stuff that I'm more interested in. Not interested, dude. And then he says, there is a subreddit called ex-Muslim, so you guys don't have to make videos about Islam. People who doing that already. Oh, I get it. So some people are making videos about Islam. We don't have to. Yeah. Dude, go away. You're not... I'm not going to put up with David, stop making videos about Islam because there are other people. No one does it like the Dizzle, though, right? Am I right? All right. So cut the crap, dude. Run your mouth one more time like that. Tell us what to do on our channel. Whine about our channel, what we cover on our channel. You'll be gone. Hey, here's an interesting one. Ducky says they called Jesus Muhammad. Hey, Ducky boy, who called Jesus Muhammad? Don't know if you're still here, Ducky.
No one in the history of the world. By the way, anyone who thinks that Muhammad was still a title, I have a big series on that. Congratulations. I'll have 2 series at this point and on this website, and I have a series on that, which I will post in the chat. Muhammad was a name of regular human beings. Almost all of them were pagans. One of them was a Christian woman who was martyred in Najran, but they are regular human beings. Before Islam was never used as a title by any Jew or Christian, was never recorded in a title form by literally anyone, even the pagans. It's Muhammad, son of so-and-so. So here you go. Nomos, if you are here, come over here. Muhammad is not a title. It's a regular Arabic human name. It was never used as a title in Ugaritic or Canaanite. It means only desire in these Northwest Semitic languages. It was never a title in Hebrew or Aramaic. It was never used for Jewish exilarchs. That comes from a literal cult that was started by some weirdo Jews. So some people are repeating some things that a cult made up as if they are quoting Joseph Smith as a source. That is the quality of this material. Was not a title of any Jewish exilarch. No Christian or Jew ever used any form of this. Mahmad, Mehmed, Mahmed, any of this. Muhammad, never used as a title for Christ, never used as a title for any Messiah. The word was not even used in circulation in Aramaic among Christians at all, as far as we can tell. Like, was never even used by any Christian in any written source that we have up through the 1300s AD in any text that was not referring to a human being after the time of Islam. So, yeah, I'm sure you have heard this. It's all false. Just please check out these articles. This is nonsense that needs to die. And some of it comes from a literal cult of some weirdo Jewish people who formed their own cult institute. And for some insane reason, some people are gullible enough to go, oh, this guy's saying something. And he self-published it on academia.edu. So I'm just going to repeat his cult nonsense. So come and check that out.
Ducky Boy replied, he said, okay, that's what I heard. I'm Christian and I have no love for Islam. So just pointing out. And Andy said, okay, now I know I'll look into some more. That is the correct response.
Yep.
It's very, very easy to hear some information and someone's telling you this stuff and you think, wow, this is interesting stuff. But if someone comes along and says, actually, that's not correct. You need to take a closer look at this. Then you've got the right response, which is, okay,
yep.
I did not know that that this is in question, and I will check this out.
And I've had Aramaic and like people who are still Syriac, who still know Syriac from their childhood, check out my articles. Native Arabic speakers, check this out too, to make sure I wasn't making any oopsies anywhere. So everyone else who, if you speak those languages, you are very welcome to go and double check me as well. And again, I'm not upset at you, Ducky Boy. It's just that people repeat things. And so it latches into people's mind because it sounds really persuasive when someone's smiling up there and saying it with lots of confidence that this is true and this is true and this is true. Notice when they don't give you quotations, sources with quotations, they don't like tell you where to find these things, and they don't give you a source that has where you can find these things. I give you all the sources here. I give you pictures. I give you literal pictures of engravings of this ancient name. Please come and check it out, look it up. So, yeah. So, and no, the form was not, it was Mahmad, and but that was one particular form. It has a different meaning. But anyway, Chemed is the Hebrew of the verb, by the way.
DJ here says, I know you are a cold-hearted MF, David, but don't do that to me. I am also cold-hearted, but you know I am right. And when I tell you to read something, you read it.
Who is this person?
I have zero clue. I know to read it. I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt and think maybe he's joking or something like that. Hey, dude, you got about 60 seconds to tell me you're joking. Because I really don't like people coming at me like this. Let's see.
It's just so random. It's so random. It's like out of nowhere.
Now he says, yeah, that's what I meant. He's like, you know, David, you know. I have zero clue who you are.
Nope.
But he
never seen you before.
He posted another comment. He said, I was Mason before I met David, but David made me believe again. All right. That's fine. But what the heck does that have to do with you?
And why do you still have occultic things in your, why do you still have occultic stuff there? Why would you do that? Anyway.
Here's a question for you. What does she think of Dan Gibson's documentary of Petra being the original Mecca?
So I have approximately 12 hours on how Petra is not at all the original Mecca at the time that so all traces of paganism were entirely extinguished from Petra by the end of the 4th century. I have evidence for that, proof for that, quotes for that, all of that sort of stuff in those live streams that I did on Reason Answers a couple of years ago. Just look for the Petra stuff on Reason Answers. The Qiblas do not change direction. They don't. There is no before and after. They do not point where Dan Gibson says they are. They truly are pointing in a direction via folk methods of pointing, and they don't shift at any particular date. A couple of things of evidence. What did early Muslims believe about the world and its shape?
Flat.
Yeah. So how could they get things to point properly in the correct direction of a ball? Because Dan Gibson is supposing that they knew latitude and longitude on the surface of the earth correctly. And aside from the fact that no one in the world could do latitude correctly at this time, or excuse me, longitude correctly at this time, and they couldn't do latitude correctly because they thought the earth was flat.
Of course they did. They did it all the way from China, apparently.
Yeah, and that's another problem, is that Chinese, Dan Gibson accepts the story that this Chinese mosque was made at a very, very early date, and so points towards Petra. The problem is that's just a legend. There were no Muslims over there in China at that date. That mosque was founded after the date of his supposed switch. So where should it point? It should point to, according to his thesis, the actual historical location, which was founded after when he thought it was, should point toward Mecca. So what does it indicate that he believes that it points towards Petra? Well, it indicates that his measurements are affected by his expectations. If he expects something to point toward Petra, it points toward Petra. If he expects it to point toward Mecca, it points toward Mecca. And these are very, very small differences in terms of direction, and trying to, with the method that he used, like, you can't be that, there's no precision in that. If you already know what the answer should be, you can't possibly be taking the measurements, because that knowledge will affect you. The differences are so teeny tiny. And we have a question about the Quran not being written in Arabic originally, but in Syriac or Aramaic. That is also false. It is not only written in Arabic, it truly is written in Hijazi Arabic. One of the things that's funny about this is that Hijazi Arabic at the time lacked a Hamza. Yet, what recitation is there that never pronounces the Hamza? None. So the way that you have Uthman saying that when this is written down, it needs to be written down in the dialect of the Quraysh, in this Hijazi, sub-Hijazi, even more close to Muhammad's own people than Hijazi generally, which had its own dialectical features. The j sound was actually g, like they still have in Egypt at that time. Who pronounces it that way? Well, people make fun of the Egyptians for saying g instead of j. But Muhammad would have said g. He would not have said j. So you have no one at all who pronounces things in the way, in their recitation, in the local dialect. And this is really funny because it points to the fact that people actually generally had contempt for the Hijazi people. They had a contempt for their pronunciation. They have a contempt for their language. In the same way that if you had the most backwoods hillbilly, I'm not saying anything about people. I love the mountains. I love those areas. But on social hierarchy level, if people in New York City were judging what the most elevated dialect was, they would put such a dialect very, very low. Backwoods hillbilly mountain dialect, they would consider to be very unsophisticated and primitive and not very attractive. So when Muhammad came out of this backwards, despised group of people into other places, immediately the reciters were like, let's just improve upon this crass, unpleasant sounding Arabic, and we shall include this pronunciation from this group and that pronunciation from that group. And we will improve upon Allah's revelation by showing off all of our knowledge of all of these other dialects and including them in our recitations. So there are elements from just randomly shoved in there in an inconsistent way into the recitations. So it really is Hijazi. It really is not. It has borrowed words from Syriac / Aramaic, absolutely borrowed words, but it is grammatically not just Arabic, but Hijazi Arabic. There's an entire book on it by Van Putten, and Al-Jalad wrote the foreword to that. So check out Van Putten's book. It's really quite interesting if you like grammar, which is like 0.05% of people. So I won't tell the rest of you that it's interesting.
Gunstar says, why do we have to attack Dan Gibson? What do you mean attack Dan Gibson? She was literally just asked what her view was. Why do we have to attack Dan Gibson and other anti-Islamists? As someone who's read Quranic geography, he justifies this by explaining how they used astronomy to calculate measurements like this.
So what he does is he transports something that would be invented 2 centuries later back in time, claims it was used in the desert when it cannot be used any place but on the ocean, because you need to have the horizon at like flat ocean level. You have to have a consistent horizon. You cannot use it anywhere but on the ocean. It was only used for navigation. It was invented 200 years later. And then he just claims that they were using this method that A, had not been invented yet, and B, doesn't work, to determine the latitude. And then he claims that they determined the longitude because they totally counted all of their steps and knew that their steps were going east and west and how many steps they had taken east or west. And he uses as his justification for this that a Roman description in Roman miles or hundreds of strides, and says that a Roman description giving Roman distances must be based on steps taken by Arabs. All of this is illegitimate. All of this is untrue. What we stand upon is truth. Just because you are saying things against Islam, I don't want you to be repeating things that aren't accurate. Now, something that Dan Gibson did that was completely correct. Dan Gibson said, look at this, the map of Ptolemy. It is one map. He's very clear. It's one map. All the different versions, they're one map. They're not multiple maps, unlike what some other people will say. One map. And in Ptolemy's map, Mecca is not there. The place that people came to claim was Mecca is actually clearly in Yemen. And he is not only, and he pointed out a location of rivers being too far north, and the only places that had anything that could correspond to that were in Yemen. Other evidence, they made Yemen way too big. There's also the fact that I actually discovered that confirms this. This is Makaraba is not Mecca. Is that there is Kana, or I think it's Kana. Anyway, one of the major Yemeni cities is actually placed to the north of this place, and he would at least get the north-south orientation of important cities correct. So if you're putting something south of a major city, it can't in Yemen. That place is in Yemen in his mind, even if he's very confused about where Yemen is. So it's about standing on accuracy, standing on facts. I want people to have theories that are plausible. We can still have disagreements. All of us can have disagreements. But I don't want people going on to things that are indefensible, that will embarrass them in conversations with knowledgeable Muslims. Because if you come to them about they used astronomy, they used this method with the measurement of the stars from the horizon, any knowledgeable Muslim, and I know lots of people aren't knowledgeable with it, but what will they do? They'll go, that hadn't even been invented yet. What are you talking about? Show me any evidence that had been invented. So
Ask for Truth says, can I ask for Mary to be my new Alexa?
That's what my parents and my husband do.
And then we
like,
have,
hey, Mary.
And then we have Noah, servant of Allah. Christians, why are you not Muslims? Oh, my goodness. Where do we begin? Because Muhammad's the most obvious false prophet in history. We don't need to degenerate to a bunch of pagan, stone-kissing nonsense. And We've got the Lord Jesus Christ. Why? Why, in the name of common sense, would we want such an infinite downgrade?
Yeah. I turned to your stupid book. I opened it up. It says, Christians are going to agree with me because their book says so. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Christians, you don't stand upon anything. You need to follow your book. I'm like, well, my book says you're an idiot. So why would I follow that? Additionally, so much in Islam is just clear paganism repackaged. It's repackaged paganism. Down to your black stone. When Moses was about to come into the promised land, and then Joshua led the people into the promised land, what did God command them? When you come into the land, smash their standing stones, which is the same term it's the term for your black stone. Your black stone is an ansab. You guys try to avoid it being an ansab, but it really is. And the standing stones, beetles, these are all the same thing under different names that are iconic representations of divinity. So it localizes divinity so that you can access your God. No pagan thought that it was literally their God in an actual rock here, and that was the representation of their God, because 50 people had rocks that represented their God, but it was that through which you accessed Allah. Just like now, why do you turn to and face the Kaaba? You need to face it so that Allah will listen to your prayers. You get access to Allah through the black stone. Circling the black stone gives you forgiveness for your sins. Kissing it gives you forgiveness. On the last day, it will testify for you. It is the most obvious idol, like so many other idols. And again, this is why I want people to be accurate. Yes, there are other descriptions of other black stones and other colored stones that these people worshipped. This wasn't the same stone that was moved around. There are all these different stones. Muslims just picked one. They're like, oh, this one's the one that gives us access to God. This pagan stone is totally giving us access to the God of Abraham, who ordered people to go in and smash stones like this one. Like, so dumb. So dumb.
All right, let's take these last super chats here. Mary is wearing a hijab. She's a Muslim, you see. We agree. That is decisive proof.
Yep, absolutely. And I wear a turban, by the way, because Muhammad had this thing against women in turbans, and it cracked me up so much. I'm like, I'm totally going to wear a turban every time.
Yeah, that's pretty Islamophobic. Momo's birth is now the whore accurate conception.
Nice.
Very, very rude. Mary, do you believe all sleep paralysis is demonic? I used to experience it in late teens, but it never bothered or frightened me. I just went back to sleep.
No, I don't. No, I don't. But I believe that some of it's like totally physiological and nothing else. Some of it is you can have horrible dreams during it and it not be demonic. I do think that it is reasonable to believe that at times there are demonic elements to it. So Gunstar, it's not, we hold each other accountable for accuracy. I'm not calling Gibson names. I'm not saying that he's a horrible person. I'm not saying he's an apostate. What I'm saying is that he is giving you inaccurate information, and you should, and I'm pointing out when he does give you accurate information. I'm not gonna say, oh, everything he says is inaccurate, because some things are. We need to be accurate. We need to be careful. We need to hold each other accountable so that we are not embarrassed when we speak to Muslims, so that it doesn't look like Christians don't care about truth. They just care about one another like we're some kind of mafia. That's what happens in Islam. Islam is mafia, right?
Yeah, so Gunstar here, he said, I assume this is what you're responding to. I just don't like friendly fire. Dude, that attitude where, can't criticize anyone on your own side, even if you think they're wrong and even if you think they're giving arguments that are ultimately not going to work, and therefore you don't want them to spread and blow up in people's faces. It's just a terrible attitude, man. We should want to be giving accurate information. Now, there are areas where we'd say, okay, this person has a really solid case, and I don't know if it's right or not, and so I don't want to attack it. If you think a position's wrong, why would you not point that out? Like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a seriously. It's like you had that same thing in politics recently, where people were saying, what was it? Don't divide the right, or something like that. And they were saying, don't criticize the Groypers and all these white nationalists and stuff like that, because you don't want to divide up. And it just makes everyone look like everyone's cool with this. And what happened? How's things going with those guys right now? Yeah. Politically, I'm saying politically, they're all saying, we should have voted for Kamala. So, anyway.
Yeah. So. Yeah, you hold your own people accountable. And why is there this weird argument about Abraham occurring in the comments? Because Abraham's family is from Haran, which is over in the west, and then he traveled to Ur, which, if it is Ur of the Chaldees, as it was known later on, identified later on in the 19th or 20th century, I think it was first identified in the 20th century as actually being in later Chaldea after the Chaldeans had moved. So this would be a future statement about the far future. Then he would have moved into Sumer and then moved back again, based from Haran no matter what. And the traditional location of that Ur is a different city that was called Ur, because Ur just meant city. that was much closer to Haran and actually makes more geographical sense. You can believe whichever one you want, but quit saying he's Sumerian. I don't know why you're saying that. That's very silly.
Then we have this. People were too afraid to call Candace Owens evil for some odd reason. Yeah, that's exactly what people said when she started going off the deep end. It was, hey, don't criticize her. We're gonna divide the right. And look how that's gone. Guess what? If your reason for not calling things out is you don't want to divide, the division's going to happen way worse down the road.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen.
Yeah. So, yeah. And again, like, we can have disagreements. It gets very nasty whenever some people immediately go to, oh, the Muslims are saying this, oh, the enemies are saying this, and start smearing people. Oh, the only reason you say this is because you want money. Yeah, it gets ugly really fast whenever someone's starting out with that. But have I done this in this stream? Have I said anything about? I said that I'm really distressed by people falling for. Yeah,
you were asked, what do you think about this position? Yeah. And you responded to it. Weird.
Hi, Desert Truth.
Let's see. I see how God is forced to judge humanity because of the most wickedness that we're inclined to do passionately and recklessly. I'm so thankful for Jesus and his precious cross, or we would all be in hell. Praise Jesus. Here we have Defending a Lion. We should mention him earlier. We should stream on the Israeliyat in the Tafsir Hadith. Even the exegesis of the Quran is largely rabbinic, especially Ibn Kathir makes the Islamic dilemma hit harder when even their scholars use the Jews.
Yeah, so Ibn Abbas, who's the guy that Muhammad said, Muhammad said, for these guys, follow their recitations of the Quran. And then he says, for this guy, you should listen to his exegesis of it, his explanations. That's our buddy Ibn Abbas. And what does Ibn Abbas do? He runs to early Jewish converts. He's like, oh, what did the Jews say about this? Oh, what did the Jews say about that? And add it in. Sometimes attribute it directly to Muhammad, sometimes not. So very interesting. Abu Huraira also did a whole lot of reading in the Jews and seems to do a lot of attributing that to Muhammad. So, yeah.
Yeah, Defending a Lion. Yeah, all that stuff is good to cover. Since a lot of these guys don't like Jews very much, it is good to remind them how much of their religion came from Jews. We need a clear, and I'm not talking about this specifically. I mean, long term, we need a clear and repeat way of constantly reminding them where this is all coming from, like where they're getting all their stuff, and to
the rabbinical problem. You might call it the Talmudic problem.
Yeah. So what I mean there is making it handy for people to kind of throw it in their faces, so that like when you have all these Muslims right after the Epstein files are released and stuff, they're like, oh look, there's the Muslims weren't mentioned. There was lots of Muslims mentioned in the files and so on. But whenever they started bringing that up, Epstein wasn't a Muslim, then what happened? Like it was an open door. People started posting stuff about Muhammad, right?
The boiling sea might be a good one to go to. The rabbis who taught boiling sea.
No, I just mean as far as some handy stuff that's like 8 to 12 minute, but that really makes the point. Like compiling. I don't want to say compile because I know you have tons of stuff. I know you have tons of stuff of this, but like boiling down something to like
the boiling sea,
like 10 minute. Here's the issue. You guys have a problem with Jews. You guys complain about the Talmud. Here's the origin of your book. Here's the percentages and stuff like that. And then few quick examples there so that whenever these guys, but the Talmud says the Talmud, then people just start throwing it in their faces. Wait, you're talking about the Talmud now? Really? Because most of your religion comes from that, right? Anyway.
Imagine being such a horrible person that, first of all, you say that I am screaming, and then second of all, that you insult your wife in front of thousands of people. Imagine that. Imagine insulting your wife in front of 1,500 people just to be nasty to some person you don't know. Astonishing.
Who did that?
Astonishing. Shame on you. JD Pepmar. This woman screaming like my wife gives me PTSD. Man, do you love your wife like Christ loved the church? Imagine that. Just disgraceful. Disgraceful.
That's that DJ Petmar?
Yeah.
You said, good point, girl, respect. He said, good point, girl, respect. So I don't know. Oh, can she go now, please? Oh, yeah. Now you're banned, dude.
Yeah.
Now you're banned. Don't know if you didn't see earlier how we kind of respond to people telling us what to do and stuff like that who have no business doing it. And again, if someone's interested in a different topic, go somewhere else. It's seriously so weird to me, right? There are all these live streams going on all over the world at all times. It never crosses my mind to go onto someone else's live stream. Oh, here's where they talk about comic books. Guys, I'm interested in Christianity and Islam. Why don't you change the topic from the comic books to this? Like, it would never cross my mind. What? That's your guys' stream. And the people who are watching are generally interested in what you're talking about. It would never cross my mind. Let me go on there and tell you guys what to talk about on your stream. Like, what level of narcissism? I don't know. It's insane.
The thing is, very insecure people need other people they get affirmation from other people caring about the same things they do. So that's a huge amount of it.
Oh boy. Yeah, so defending a line. Yeah, we could do something here the next couple of weeks or something like that on that. But yeah, it would be good to put together a nice, tight, dope video on your channel that everyone can share, and I will tell them to share that. Let's see. All jokes aside, it all makes me really sad.
It is a tragedy. Just all of Islam being like this, that it takes, in terms of pagan cultures that had reached the Iron Age. So we're talking about all iron-wielding cultures in the world. The Arabs were among the most depraved. They were certainly the most depraved according to the people in the area. Like, no one had as nasty a reputation as Arabs did. There was no one else where it's like, those guys are liars. It might be like, those guys are kind of violent and ugly, but not just fundamentally dishonest, fundamentally unchaste, and fundamentally depraved. And that was the reputation of the Arabs. And Islam just took all that rot and stuck a burqa on it and called it monotheism.
Receiving visions for desires must be genetic. D. Wood, is or will it be over for the UK? Be brutally honest. The UK could snap out of things at any point
second.
and fix things. The problem is, apart from some stuff with like Tommy Robinson and stuff like that, you're not getting the indication that you guys, that the general population is taking this seriously enough, right? You still get to vote in the UK. You still have elections and stuff. The point there is, if you had enough people who understood the issue, you could get leaders very quickly. That's the problem. It's like, you still got time. If people caught on right now or 6 months from now or something like that, you could still deal with it. But people just aren't catching on rapidly. In other words, it's not everything you're facing. It's the lack of appropriate response and reaction to it. That's where the concern should be. If you had an informed population of free people could deal with your issues overnight. People seem hell-bent on ignorance and not hurting people's feelings and all the opposite things from what are required to deal with the problem.
The issue is that they are devoted to a system of belief that they can either face reality or hang on to their false beliefs. Their false beliefs about how all cultures basically have the same values, but at the same time, moral relativism is true, but it's true because they all have the same values, which is utterly untrue. you have to either affirm that gangs of men going around raping little girls is the good, or you have to admit that there are wicked, evil, depraved, and disgusting cultures out there, and that goodness is not defined by a culture. You have to pick one. And they have picked the third option, which is just denial. No, they don't think that. You just think they do that. No, la, 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 la. That's what they're choosing. And it will not end well for you. You will die. You will die. If you do not die, your children will die if you stick your head in the sand. Choosing death because there are uncomfortable truths is one of the greatest acts of stupidity you could possibly ever do. But it is what a lot of people in the UK are doing right now. And fortunately, a lot of people who were kind of raised with this nonsense, as soon as they're slapped in the face by reality, they jerk out of it. But unfortunately, because elites very often it's not their daughters getting raped. So they are willing to sacrifice and kill your daughters to preserve their ignorance, to preserve their false belief. And if anything can be done to make them feel the pain directly and in large numbers, then they'd snap out of it tomorrow. But they're willing to sacrifice other people's children for their delusion, which is mad.
City of Petra was original Mecca location. Say you. This is from earlier. Mary already responded
we covered
to that. Why is David so quiet? Already answered that. My theory now is to why alcohol is not allowed in Islam. It's because they're afraid someone who's drinking might tell the truth, you see.
It was right after this whole thing that Muhammad was all of a sudden like, alcohol is not so good. Stop drinking, guys. Where he started really disapproving of it. He didn't completely forbid it until like one of his last acts because he couldn't. Like, he gave men what they wanted to follow him, and if he had forbidden it before then, but like in his final part of the whole final sermon and stuff, it's like, by the way, stop this alcohol stuff. Wee.
Momo's mom prostituted herself.
Should have a lot fewer children then.
Prostituted herself. Where is Buddha now? There's no hope in Buddhism. Good point. The background to Mojo's mom is very depressing.
Yeah, it is. Because she was an orphan too. She was an orphan given over to her uncle and seems to have been offered as a party favor at his daughter's wedding. Which is big oof.
You mean I can't shout the coins and everyone believe me instantly without logical proof?
Apparently some people will.
No, you can do it. You could do that. Yeah. That's one way of doing things. If D. Wood seemed to sway from the truth, we will tell him that. I hope you will. And I might crush and destroy you, but do it anyway. Because then when I'm not enraged at some point, I'll think, actually, those dudes are right. Quran chapter 4, verse 64 says, seeking Allah's forgiveness, the messenger prayed for their forgiveness. Momo is dead. Therefore, the Black Stone cannot provide Muslims with Allah's forgiveness. It provides the Saudi government with billions in revenue. Yeah, I have to say, from the perspective of a grift, it's brilliant.
It is a brilliant grift.
You had this tiny little spot in the middle of the desert with nothing. And they're just raking in billions and billions. It helped that they realized they were on a sea of oil and stuff like that, but then they were able to complement each other. And you take the oil money and get some buildings built up, and so there's more places for people to stay, so you can make it a bigger event and stuff like that. But yeah, they have endless trunks of money rolling into Arabia for that black stone. Good stuff. As a nerd, my bad, but to me, with your head wrap and earphones, you look like you're in Star Wars and ready to make a gun run on the Death Star.
Sounds good. Why not?
Yeah, Muhammad didn't like turbans on women. What the heck?
as long as it's the original trilogy. I don't
These
need to
guys who are
take this up.
complaining, you all sound like Muhammad. Read in Dawa voice. See, hath a non-Arab born over 1300 years after Muhammad hath as much being his dad as the man who is claimed to be his father. See, this is the proof of Islam.
Anyone could have been his father. Time travelers could have been his father. Yeah, why not?
UK is literally debating Sharia law via Islamophobe czar law. Maybe new Reform Party turns it around. Green Party UK has white eradication policy now. Yeah, as far as Reform Party, I mean, if that's the party that's gonna, maybe do something, then obviously you want to do that. The problem I see with the UK is like it's like you got a new party that's gonna save you every couple years, and then like that party will come out, and then like everyone will rally around that party, and then like 2 years later there'll be something they say, no, this guy's wrong, and then they'll say that's why we need a new party and stuff, and it's like you guys are playing musical political parties and stuff.
Someone just told me to shut up, so I put him in timeout.
Oh, good.
And I wrote, no, you.
That's good.
And yeah, I've done this thing. There are several times whenever details of people's lives are essentially fudged to make things work out. For example, the oldest son of Muhammad's slave, Barakah, is often given an impossible father because Muhammad probably thought or wanted to think he was the father, although I think he was totally infertile all his life. But whenever she turned out pregnant, he was banging her. It's like, oh, is that my son? And then the divination arrows fell against him, partly because she was Ethiopian. And they're like, we're not having an half Ethiopian kid in our family. But anyway, because of all of these things that are done to try to fudge certain people's births in sources, I make a joke that Islam relies on time-traveling uteruses. So what actually happened is that Amina's uterus traveled back in time 9 months before Muhammad's birth, got impregnated by Muhammad, or Muhammad's father, and then came back so that she could gestate him and give birth to him. So it's all the time-traveling uteruses once again have struck and fixed everything.
Aussie Abe says, my friend's a nurse in a Muslim city here in Sydney. Women and children come in beat and bruised, and the hospital does nothing due to cultural sensitivity.
Yeah, same thing happened to my husband, who is from an Asian background. His father was extraordinarily physically abusive, and when he told the school counselor went and told his father that he told him, and then scolded my husband, future husband obviously at that point, scolded him that he needs to understand his father's culture better, in which it's okay to beat the crap out of your child with chairs and objects and things just because you've had a bad day. So, yeah. That is the compassion of the moral relativists. This is the leftist compassion for people. They want children to be beaten into pulp rather than to actually tackle the implication of things, because it wasn't their kids. Let the little foreign kids, let the little brown kids be beaten up to preserve my belief about the world and myself.
Yeah, what was it's a famous story I've heard a million times. My brain's just fried right now. What was that? When the British were in India and the Hindus said, "Yeah, yep. we toss women on the funeral." Was it the funeral pyres of their husbands?
Yeah. So it was our culture. So what happened was the governor of that area of India said, "You're not going to do this anymore." And one of the priests came to him complaining that, "Sir, it is our tradition that our women are burned with their husbands on the funeral pyre." And he looked at him, he's like, "That's fine. It is British tradition that we hang those who do so." And he built a gallows immediately after that conversation, and it stopped. Now, a lot of other things did stop. They still kick widows out of the houses to starve in the streets still, because they're considered like they're now unclean. They're now outside of society. This brutal treatment continues to this day. They're untouchable filth because their husbands have died, but they don't set them on fire anymore.
And so anyway, my view is something like that should be but we just beat the crap out of women and kids in our culture. Okay, well that's your culture. Well, in our culture, and then there could be all kinds of responses. We lock you up. We take your kid from you. We kick you out of the country if possible. Things like that. It should just be perfectly acceptable to beat the crap out of someone like that.
See, I'm all for reviving the tradition of canings. I think it would be more effective for a lot of people.
Oh
And it
yes,
wouldn't,
things like that, things like that. Okay, yeah, we have. I mean,
yeah,
just think, guys. Overnight, you've dealt with some problems.
many
Hey,
problems
yeah,
because,
hey, your kid is showing up,
yeah,
beaten and bruised. But it's our culture. Okay, it's our culture. We're dragging you out to the public square to publicly flog you.
and that would be a very appropriate one and wouldn't endanger the family. You won't lose your job because you spend 30 days in jail. You'll be
You don't have
publicly
to.
humiliated and hanged. So,
The state
yeah,
doesn't have to spend piles of money to keep you
hmm,
incarcerated and stuff like that. It's pretty
right.
cheap. Pretty cheap. Yep.
It's cheap, it's direct, it addresses the issue at hand, and it doesn't, set off a chain of reactions that causes your social failure. It just is a very direct way of saying, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
UK won't wake up. I'm going to Harvard to escape. Good luck with that one. That's funny. Using VPN in China. Have you considered posting on Chinese social media? A few of us here use your clips to fight against mostly Pakistani Dawa. No, I don't know any Chinese social media or how to use it, and
Little red
I have
book,
I have enough
but it's
trouble.
mostly internet.
Yeah, I have enough trouble with the couple of platforms I use, so I would not want to expand as something I have zero clue how to use. From what I learned about Momo, his dad could have been a time traveler, as Mary said, and was called Adolf the Megaloman.
Someone else says that
The,
she has
the
a
megalomaniac traits are
therapist.
unmistakable.
Yeah. Someone else says, yeah, I have an atheist as a therapist who tells someone from her culture that, oh, you just have to understand your own culture. And she's like, well, F my culture. It's evil. I don't want to be beaten up. I don't want to be abused. Why is that so hard to understand? Why is it only that European white kids deserve protection from abuse? Why is it that these leftists say that only European white kids deserve that kind of life and that everybody else doesn't deserve it? Who's the racist?
It's pretty racist. All right, everyone. Final thoughts on any of this, Mary? Or I got the link to your articles and so on, but some people may have come in late. But any final thoughts on all this stuff?
So I will throw. Whoops! I'll throw the link one more time in the chat for folks who want to click on it from the chat. This is not so from the beginning. This is not about. This is not about just taking. Look at his mom. His mom was a whore. This is about a hard look at how the fact that Muhammad was illegitimate, understood to be illegitimate by many people in Mecca, how that causes Islam to be false for 5 distinct reasons, 2 of which are dependent on his actual illegitimacy, but the other 3 are only dependent on the acceptance in Islam of long durations of pregnancy, of 2 and more years, multi-year pregnancies being accepted in Islam disproves Islam for 3 other distinct reasons. And again, it explains some of the psychology of Muhammad. It explains how he underwent horrible things as a child and how it made him desperate for the respect that he was denied, for the acceptance that he was denied, for admiration, for position. He wanted to be the savior of his people. That's why he's so hung up on Mecca above all places. And Mecca was this backwoods little no place. As soon as he got to Medina, what did he want? He wanted Mecca. He wanted Mecca. He needed Mecca. And he needed this respect from the people who had looked down on him his entire life. And he was willing to believe all sorts of things about anything. He was a fart sniffer. He sniffed his own farts. He believed a lot of his own lies for a good portion of his career. He convinced himself of a lot of the things that he was saying because of his desperation that stemmed from his orphanhood, the fact that he didn't come from the father that was ascribed to him, the fact that a lot of people didn't believe that he came from that father, the fact that his mother had a low position, the fact that he was treated as a slave and as a sexual toy by the male family members. There are, his cousin Abu Sufyan, when he came petitioning Muhammad for mercy, his response was, "This was a guy who sexually molested me." And the word that he used in Arabic is most typically used specifically for sexual attacks. It does sometimes have other meanings, but its normal meaning is that this is my older cousin who did stuff to me. I don't want to be nice to him. And all of this together paints a picture of a man who was injured but also depraved and created something in his own image. That which Islam images is this pagan Arabia with Muhammad as a light-giving figure, but the light that is given is just more of this pagan Arabia. It's just more of this desperate backwardness, this just depravity, deep, deep depravity that has become, it can't be removed from the religion. Everyone's like, moderate Muslims this, moderate Muslims that. They're ignorant Muslims and Muslims in denial. And then there are Muslims who know their sources and believe them. And it comes from this wicked, depraved mind that was born out of this abuse and desperation for admiration in the context of a wicked society.
Mouse says European girls are not being protected from these Muslim men. No, I think you missed the point. It's that
that's also true.
If a white British girl showed up to school battered and bruised because her dad was beating her, they would intervene.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If it's Muslims doing it to their kids, they won't intervene because they don't want to be Islamophobic. No. So the overarching rule is no one should be protected from what Muslim men do. That's the overarching rule. So their own kids shouldn't be protected and other people's kids should not be protected. No one should be protected from what Muslim men do. And we're saying that's a really screwed up principle. Muslim kids should be protected from what these guys do, and definitely non-Muslim kids should be protected from what these guys do. And then makes sense why he hates fatherhood so much. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Link to Mary's articles are in there. We ended up with 94% of people saying that, yes, in fact, Muhammad's mother was a prostitute.
And it's funny, the people who came in late and didn't actually hear our arguments slanted it, or people were brigading it at the end. Mm-hmm. Like, come on, you have to vote! Vote against this! Vote against this!
Yep.
But yeah, you can find me online, usually streaming once a week at Reasoned Answers. I put that in the chat. I'll put it in the chat one more time. So if you want more information as we are going through it. So this is all important stuff. And again, not just throwing stones. Yeah, the topic gets people to raise their eyebrows and begin to listen. But the stuff is really, really important.
Yep. And again, link to Mary's articles in the description. Catch y'all next time.